Welcome into Sports Time. No Brett today. Bryant and Landon with you for the next 3 hours. Landon pulling double duty this afternoon, a little producing, a little co-hosting with me. So we're with you for the next 3 hours. A lot to get into today as the Tigers, they were winners last night at home against Rice. We had a lot of other college basketball games going on last night. A great night in the world of college basketball, especially in the SEC. We'll talk a lot about that. Got to talk NBA. Got to talk some wagering a little bit later. A lot of basketball today, but we do later in the show, probably around 5:30. We got to talk NFL. A lot of news coming out between yesterday and today. A lot being said, a lot being uncovered at the NFL scouting combine as the on-field workouts begin today. So we'll definitely be keeping an eye on that, but a lot to get to later in the show regarding the NFL. So a lot to get to. Again, Brett out today. He'll be back tomorrow. Just a couple days off for him, some personal days. Would Darian call him a little R&R for Brett? So he'll be back tomorrow with us to end out the week. But we got to start off by talking about the Tigers, what they did last night, an 84-72 win over the Rice Owls, a game where, going into it, didn't really know what to expect. We did Tiger Bankroll yesterday, and Brett and Darian sided with Rice. Connor and I sided with Memphis. And my logic kind of going into that game was, or going into last night's game, was if you watched the first game against Rice, it was a 3-point win. But late in the second half, I think we talked about it yesterday with Jeff Brightwell, Tigers have an 11-point lead with about 2.5 minutes left in that game, and then Rice goes on a wild run at the end of that game to make it extremely close at the end. You're thinking, back at home, you've already seen this. You have the blueprint of what Rice is going to do against you, and with your fans being at home with all of that behind you, maybe you can go out there and win comfortably. It was comfortable at the very end last night. Like I said, the final score, a 12-point win for the Tigers, but most of that second half, very uncomfortable for the Tigers. Now, let's go ahead and get the elephant in the room out of the way. The officiating is what everyone is talking about today. PJ Haggerty got the tech last night after what he thought was a no call. There was a little bit of contact there. I was kind of in the middle about if a foul should have been called on that exact play, but I do think there were plays throughout the game on PJ Haggerty, some of the other guys on Memphis, that were either very ticky-tacky calls or missed calls. I do think the officiating was something last night. It was on both sides, really. If you watched the game last night and saw both sides, I thought both teams at times had an argument. But at the end of the day, I think I went back. I was at the game last night. And so then late last night, I went back and watched the broadcast. One here, Greg Gaston, who will join us later, he was on the call with Trey Draper last night on ESPN+. So I wanted to watch it again and kind of get a different view of the game, and especially some of those fouls and some of those no calls. And I liked what Trey Draper said after PJ Haggerty got the technical, kind of said, you make them call a foul. Don't try to go up and try to show you're getting a foul. Make them call a foul. Just play your game. If you're going to be aggressive, if you're going to get to the rim, if you're going to get to the basket, a lot of times you're going to come out with a foul. Make them call that foul. And there were a couple times leading up to PJ Haggerty getting the technical where after a bucket, after a shot where he felt like he was fouled, he'd turn around and you could see he was kind of saying something to the official. So right when I saw him come down from that shot, immediately look at the ref and throw his hands up, I knew he was getting a technical. I mean, I told the people I was with last night, I said, here it comes, and there it was. So I understood I understand the frustration, I guess I can say, around PJ Haggerty. And I thought it was interesting. Dave Woloshin said this earlier today, and I think I agree. He said that he doesn't know this for certain. He has nothing to back this up, but he thinks that maybe American Athletic Conference officials have been told not to officiate PJ Haggerty differently, because I've seen a lot of that. I don't know if I think it's officiate him differently, but is be aware of the way he plays and how he is trying to draw fouls. Because let's be honest. And I want other people's opinions. I want to know your thoughts on the game last night. I want your thoughts on the officiating last night. Text them in. Call in. Sissy's Log Cabin listener line, 901-360-8255. Let me know what you thought, not only about the officiating, the game as a whole for the Tigers last night. But let's be honest. There are a lot of times P.J. Haggerty goes up, whether it's a foul or not, he's kind of flailing around. He kind of throws his arms out. He kind of lands awkwardly sometimes. He is very good at drawing fouls, and he knows what he needs to do in order to draw fouls. Last year, second in the country in getting to the free throw line, only behind Zach Edey. So, he's kind of crafted his game in a way to where he gets to the line a lot. And I would not be surprised at all if something was put out, if something was told to officials in American Athletic Conference play of, make sure you're paying attention to how he's going up, if there's actually contact there, or if you're just seeing his head go back, or his arm kind of flail to the side like he was getting hit, and if maybe that is causing the refs to swallow their whistles. Because, there's no doubt about it. The refs swallowed their whistles a couple times last night, and a couple times specifically with P.J. Haggerty. If you look at the numbers, I know our friend David Cobb, who joins us on Mondays, he has talked multiple times. He's brought up multiple times about how P.J. Haggerty has gotten to the free throw line a lot less throughout conference play than he did in non-conference. So maybe there's something there. But, I think the officiating last night was not the reason that game was so close towards the end. I think there were other things to point to before the officiating that kind of gets you to the conclusion of, that was a scary game with 2 minutes left before Dane Danger, and we'll talk about him in a second, before he really took over. What did you think of the officiating last night and kind of the reaction since then?
Yeah, so I wasn't at the game,
right.
but I saw the highlights afterwards. As you know, I was previously occupied with something else had going on. But hearing you say that, it's kind of the same with the officiating on all levels. I know I've talked to you about this before, but my father and I ref kids basketball at Hope Church, and I'm not saying that's even remotely close to D1 college basketball, the NBA, nothing like it. But you do have once in a while those kids who are really good at drawing fouls. You have those kids that kind of play around, they kind of mess around, and you start to notice those kind of things. So hearing you break down kind of how P.J. Haggerty plays, how he's good at drawing those fouls, how he's good at his style of play, referees tend to notice that, and I know that they're paid to be unbiased, but once you see that kind of repetition, you can't help, because we're all human. We have that human nature within us. That starts to kind of build up. So when I hear that he's been trying to play that way all night, and what I saw he was trying to do all night, and the refs really weren't giving it to him, weren't really granting those kind of fouls, kind of the same thing happens where it's just like, this guy's trying to do too much, and you're not rewarding him, and then frustrations build up to the point to where it breaks through, gets the technical foul. It reminds me of that foul that John Morant got that one game where he just threw the ball down in frustration. Now, I would say there's a little bit different. You're in the NBA. You're a professional. This is your job. This is your livelihood. College, I would say there's a little bit more leeway. There's a little bit more, these kids are still growing up. They're still figuring it out, even though they are very good at their craft. But it's just kind of those things where just frustrations tend to build, and, at least what I can say in defense of the referees is you'd rather them be consistent one way or another rather than inconsistent where they're calling stuff for a little bit, then they're not calling stuff. It sounds to me like they were just consistently not great the whole night.
I'm glad you said that, because consistency they were. 20 fouls called on Rice, 20 fouls called on Memphis. Now, and here's the thing. People will always argue and say, well, Rice was fouling late in the game to send Memphis to the line, and that's why it was even. I understand that. But even if there's a small discrepancy, it's not always going to be the same amount. When I have a problem with officiating is if you have 10, 15 foul difference between the two teams, but 20 fouls called on both sides. Memphis attempted 23 free throws. Rice attempted 24 free throws. And I should say this, Rice, a very good team getting to the line. They are, I believe, 12th in the country at average free throws per game. So they get to the line a lot. And I wanna put this out there because I think when you hear the word, or when you say the word, flailing around, that kind of makes you think, well, he's flopping. It kind of
soccer
has that. Yeah, sure. It has that negative. It sounds negative, but I give PJ Haggerty a ton of credit for how he plays and how crafty he is in being kind of that player that draws a lot of fouls. But I do think that is part of it. The way that he goes up with his shots, especially at the basket, that maybe officials are looking at him and saying we've got to look twice as hard at him, because is he just throwing his head back because he wants to get a foul, or is he throwing his head back because he just got hit in the face? And I think sometimes when you're doing that, when you've been told, maybe, again, have nothing to support this, complete speculation.
Yeah.
But if you are told, we'll use you as an example, you're reffing at Hope, and the director comes down to you and says, hey man, this kid, he's drawing fouls. A lot of the opposing teams are saying that, he's getting to the line when he shouldn't be getting to the line, and I've kind of noticed it. Just, keep an eye on him when he's going up. If he goes up for a layup and you see his head go back and you're in the moment going, I don't know if that was a foul or not, it's very easy to swallow that whistle and
I've
just
done
say,
that plenty of times.
Play on.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just one of those things. But, I do think it needs to be talked about, because it got to the point where PJ Haggerty got a technical. It's been written about. It is a fact that PJ Haggerty is getting to the free throw line a lot less in conference play than he did in non-conference. We'll talk with Greg Gaston later in the show about that. I know he'll have a lot of insight about what's going on with PJ Haggerty, how he's viewing it with everything that's happening since we've gotten to conference play. Well, let's talk about the good from last night. Dane Danger was fantastic in that game. A career high for him, 25 points, 10 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 blocked shots, and only 2 turnovers for him in that game. And you saw a lot from Dane Danger, especially at the end of that game, playing with 3 fouls. Penny Hardaway decided to leave him out there with 3 fouls. Obviously, late in the game, it'd be very hard for him to pick up 2 more fouls in the last 4 minutes or so. I don't know exactly when he picked up that third, but it was later in the game. So stuck with Dane Danger down the stretch, and it paid off for him. He came up with some huge plays, doing a little bit of everything. Points. He had a really nice assist where it's kind of a handoff to PJ Haggerty, who got the layup. Getting rebounds, had a massive offensive rebound where PJ Haggerty was at the line, missed his second free throw. He gets the offensive rebound and puts it back. The block shots on the other end of the court, how he was playing defensively. Really impressive game for Dane Danger. And you really look at this team, we talk about who do you need to... I think we talked about it yesterday. Colby Rogers, the stat where Memphis is 8-1 when Colby Rogers scores 12 or more points. You'd love to have him, scoring 12 or more points a game and kind of getting back up to what we saw in non-conference. But at the same time, I think Dane Danger might be the key. If you have him playing, you look at the way he's playing over, really since he started, but over these last few games, take out the Wichita State game, but 3 of the last 4 games, 20 or more points. 5 of the last 6 games, 5 of the last 6 games, 18 or more points. 21 points against Tulsa, 18 points against Temple, 20 points against USF, the 4-point game against Wichita State, 22 points against FAU, and 25 points last night against Rice. It feels like, and it doesn't feel like, it's clear. Adding him to the starting lineup, I think maybe it was Darian that said this yesterday. I don't know if he said it on air or off the air, but is putting Dane Danger in the starting lineup the best decision, the best coaching decision that Penny Hardaway has made in his career at the University of Memphis? And I had to say, I'd have to...
Great move.
I'd have to think
bold.
about that. I have to think about that. But you look at it, it's been a great move.
It's been an impactor,
What he has done in the buy-in, I know... And I don't know exactly when Dane Danger said this, but I know I saw it on social media. I think somebody, maybe Tim Buckley at the Daily Memphian wrote about it, and then Dave Lotion said it either this morning or yesterday, that when Dane Danger was in his first year or two at Baylor before transferring to Illinois, he wanted to be a 3. He wanted to be a small forward. And Baylor was like, nah, man, that's not what we view you as. I think John Jacobs, the FAU head coach who was an assistant at Baylor when Dane Danger was there, I think he spoke about it Sunday after the game, of this buy-in from Dane Danger of, yeah, I'll be the big man. I'll do the dirty work in the post. And what he's able to do, again, able to facilitate and not only just score and grab rebounds, but you're seeing 3-4 assists in most games. He is really sharing the ball well. He's been so much fun to watch. And then Nicholas Jourdain last night had a really, really solid game. What he was doing on the offensive glass, I thought, was the biggest part of him. 5 offensive rebounds for Nicholas Jourdain last night, 19 points. He also had 2 blocks. So a really good game from Nicholas Jourdain. We'll talk about it a little bit more probably in the next segment, but he was one of the post-game interviews. It was Dane Danger and Nicholas Jourdain, the post-game interview on the radio broadcast with Dave Lotion. And both him and Penny talked about it, that Penny Hardaway pulled him aside earlier this week and had a meeting with him kind of about, like, hey, man, you can be a better player than what you're showing out there on the court. Nicholas Jourdain called it a tough conversation, and that he took it and thought about it the entire rest of the day, the entire time during practice, and that it was it was tough for him to hear, but that he acknowledged what Penny Hardaway was saying, that he needed he could and needed to play better, and he certainly showed it last night for the Tigers. But it did get scary. We'll talk about it a lot. Some of the miscues, the three-point shooting was down last night. It was not their night shooting. Also defensively in the second half, we can talk more about it. But some of the pick-and-roll defense last night was a little worrisome for the Tigers. We'll get into a lot of that in our next segment. But let me set up today's show before we get to top and not top story of the day. 3:30, we'll get back into the conversation about the Tigers and their win last night over Rice. It was an 84-72 win, the second to last home game for the Tigers. They'll now be on the road for 2 games, Sunday against UAB, early next week. I believe it's Tuesday night against UTSA before returning home next Friday for the regular season finale against USF. We'll talk a lot of Tigers in our next segment. 3:45, we'll talk college basketball, more of the national scene. A great night last night in college hoops. I didn't get to see a lot of the 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock slate because I was at the Tigers game, but when I got home, a lot of those 8 o'clock endings were really important for teams that are on the bubble. We'll talk a lot about that at 3:45. 4 o'clock, Keith Smith from Spa Track and the Front Office Show. He'll join us to talk the NBA. A lot to get to there. We'll talk the Grizzlies. We'll also talk, I said yesterday, the game to keep an eye on last night in the NBA, the Boston Celtics on the road against the Detroit Pistons, and it was the Detroit Pistons that got the win last night over the defending champs. So we'll talk about that. A lot of news out of the NBA. 4:30, Doug Kazarian from OnlyPlayers.com in Vegas. He'll join us. We'll talk some wagering with him, college basketball and NBA. I also want to get his thoughts. I don't know how much baseball Doug Kazarian handicaps. We'll talk a little bit about that with spring training getting started and maybe a little bit of NFL with the scouting combine. 4:45, we'll get to big number of the day. 5 o'clock, Greg Gaston will join us to talk Tigers. Again, he was on the broadcast last night with Trey Draper calling Memphis versus Rice. So we'll get his thoughts on everything that happened last night, and we'll preview the big game on Sunday for the Tigers against UAB. 5:30, we'll talk about what's trending. Again, talk a lot of NFL there. Abdul Carter, he has an injury. How worried should Landon be if that's the guy he wants at number 1?
Just stand by. Just stand by.
Travis Kelce, it sounds like he's going to come back for another year with Kansas City. We'll talk about all of that during What's Trending. 5:45, we'll wrap up today's show like we always do with Crunch Time. Let me remind you, we're in our Family Leisure Studios where family and fun come together. It's the preseason pool and patio sale going on right now at Family Leisure. Spring is just around the corner, and it's time to start thinking about your backyard entertainment. 2024 pricing on all above-ground pools and patio furniture. Beat the rush and get in line for your pool installation right now. Patio furniture is up to 70% off to make room for the incoming inventory. Play gyms, trampolines, and outdoor kitchens, they're on sale too. And don't forget about the spas, now up to $3,000 off. Mention this ad and you'll get a $250 gift card with a pool, spa, or patio furniture purchase. So head out to Family Leisure, 2120 Witten Road, just north of I-40. Again, you can be a part of the show. Text in, call in the Sissy's Log Cabin listener line, 901-360-8255. Let us know your thoughts on the game last night. PJ Haggerty, he wants the calls. Is he getting the calls that he deserves? Let us know what you think. Let us know what you think about the win last night over Rice. Again, the Sissy's Log Cabin listener line, 901-360-8255. And again, this first hour brought to you each and every afternoon by Lexus of Memphis. Perfect day. The weather outside's beautiful. Why not go out to Lexus of Memphis and test drive some of those beautiful new vehicles? I mean, spring, it's a perfect time to get a new car, get out there on the road while the weather's nice. So head out to Lexus of Memphis. We appreciate them being a part of our show each and every afternoon. But let's go ahead and get to top story of the day.
Top story of the day.
Jeez, I mean, first segment, I could at least get my words out, right?
It's okay.
It's all
You
right.
got the message across.
Eventually. And we limped to it, but we got there. My top story of the day, it's Memphis and their win last night against Rice. It got scary at times. Rice had it tied in the second half. They were playing them close. It felt like for a while that the Tigers were not going to be able to stretch that lead. They would get out to 6-point leads, and then it would be cut back down. They'd get to 4 points, then it would be cut back down. But at the end, Dane Danger, I don't know what got into him, but he took over that final 2 minutes, doing a little bit of everything. Scoring the ball, rebounding the ball, passing the ball for assists, blocking shots, everything you needed Dane Danger to do, he was there to do at the end of that game. Got a career high with 25 points. Really fun game, but it was also Nicholas Jourdain that stepped up in the front court. 19 points for him, 9 rebounds, 5 offensive rebounds for the big man. I thought both of them played really well, and it was a big part of the reason they won. 54 points in the paint. They grabbed 16 offensive rebounds, scored 18 second chance points. Those are stats that will win you ball games. So that was the good part, but the bad part was the three-point shooting. The Tigers really struggled to knock down the three-ball shooting, only 15%, 2 for 13 from deep. We've talked about it all season. Tigers, one of the better three-point shooting teams in the country, a top 5 going into last night's game. I haven't seen where they are now after last night's performance, but a top 10 three-point shooting team in the country, but they are not a team. When you think of some of the best three-point shooting teams in the country, you think of teams that take a lot of threes and make a lot of threes. That's not what the Tigers do. They don't shoot a ton of threes, and so if they're not falling, you're going to see games like this where they only take 13 threes and only make 2. But Tigers got away from it. I mentioned it. You know, all the points they scored inside the paint, 54 points in the paint. You can live with poor three-point shooting when you have interior play like that, even though it got a little tricky last night. But also, second half, defensively, the Tigers, I thought, gave up a lot of easy baskets for Rice. Now, Rice was making tough baskets. There were a lot of times last night where I was like, ooh, that was a tough shot right there. That was a good make. I got to give him credit for that. But especially on the pick and rolls, you saw a lot of times last night, it felt like Rice was kind of exploiting that from Memphis, where they would set a pick and roll, up at the elbow, and then that big man down low would try to slide up to defend that pick and roll, and you'd have somebody down low on the block wide open. They'd get it down to him and for an easy 2 points. So definitely some things to clean up last night in that win, but it is a win. It would have been, it would have been awful coming in here today talking about a loss at home to Rice. We had to do it last year, but doing it again this year with what Memphis has done, where Memphis is now after seeing how far Memphis dropped in terms of bracketology with a road loss against Wichita State. It would have been crazy in here today if we were talking about a Memphis loss. So you avoided that. You got to win. Now just finish out the regular season, the big one coming up this Sunday. Dave Woloshin asked Dane Danger last night about that rematch with Yaxel Lindenborg on Sunday. He didn't want to talk much about it. He said, I'll be there, I'll be ready. So that's going to be a fun matchup, Yaxel versus Dane on Sunday.
Yeah, for sure. Well, my top story, shifting gears just a little bit, after about a month of silence from head coach Brian Callahan, the head coach of the Tennessee Titans, he finally broke the silence right in time for the NFL Combine getting started and answered a bunch of questions that a lot of people had. We know when it comes to the Titans that their number one priority is finding a quarterback. Will Levis is clearly not the answer. He's not the direction to go. What are their plans going forward? I don't think he's given a direct answer to that. But when he was asked a lot of questions, and I think Brian Callahan answered them to the best of his ability and gave us a somewhat clear track on where the team is headed. He said this. He said the team would prefer a long-term solution and upside over immediate success and fit, which I think speaks a lot to what we could potentially be seeing when it comes draft time, how the combine goes. And I think, too, to keep in mind of all these things that he mentions, we're still very early in the offseason. I don't think a lot of people realize that. They kind of want answers now. They love to speculate. They love to throw out all these things like, we still got to wait and see how everything pans out and what everything looks like. Regarding Travis Hunter, he says he's a player with a lot of talent who has the ability to play on offense, defense, and special teams. Callahan sees him as a starting corner in the NFL. Didn't specify for us, but he sees him as a starting corner in the NFL. Now, John Harden, I believe it was on Wednesday, kind of went off against Travis Hunter. And John, if you're listening, I want you to know that I'm in full support of you. I think that it would be ridiculous for the Titans with a number one pick, if they keep it or if they trade back, whatever they do with it, that it would be ridiculous for them to draft Travis Hunter because he's not the best wide receiver and he's not the best cornerback in this draft. I think it's just a fact. Like, I don't think it's opinion because all the stats showed of how many times Travis Hunter got upsided. Like, yes, he's a great and he's a talented player. Number one pick in the first round? I don't think so by a long shot. Definitely a star player, definitely a great player, is definitely going to make an impact wherever he goes. I just don't think the Titans are the place for him. Callahan then said, as a coach, you have to be careful about being overconfident and feeling like you can fix a player. Says you can't force it and have to know where there are things that are fixable and when it's just not working. He then goes ahead and answers the question, is there a franchise QB in this class? And like we mentioned earlier, this is something that we're going to have to figure out. He says we're going to find out. We're still in that process. We're still in a good position to be able to choose that. Once again, we still have the combine. We still have all these things to play out. The Titans will then go forward and meet with all the QBs at the combine at some point, and we're trying to get the best player, period.
Not top story of the day.
Well, we gotta be quick with not top story of the day, so I'll make mine fast. Greg Popovich, it was reported that he visited the team today. He also put out an announcement that he will not coach again this season for the San Antonio Spurs. It's just hard to watch this. He had a stroke earlier this year, and I hope we see him again on the sideline, but it certainly won't be this year. He's hopeful to return in the future. We'll talk a lot more about that at 4 o'clock with Keith Smith.
Yeah, my not top story, kind of focusing on still NFL type things, is Abdul Carter, my favorite for the Titans' number one pick, if they do decide to keep it, was advised yesterday to not undergo surgery for his foot strain, which I think is a great plan, which is a great idea. But even if he decides to go with surgery, they're estimating he'll be out in 8 weeks. And if my math serves me correctly, that means he's done about mid-April. Yeah. He's not really missing anything important. He's not going to be out of the picture on a lot of stuff. I still think either way, this foot injury, not a huge concern. But as it comes to Abdul Carter and who he is as a player, the dude led the Big Ten in every category for defensive rushers that you could possibly dream up of. And he led the entire college football with tackles for loss with 24 in last year's season alone. Yeah. Phenomenal player. And I think Abdul Carter said it best, and it goes right in line with what Brian Callahan was saying. He he says, I feel like I'm the best player in the country, and the best player should go first. That's my pick if we keep the number 1 pick, and that's my not top story.
Yeah, we'll have to get more into that at 5:30 during What's Trending. I want to talk more about Abdul Carter, but let's go ahead and get to our first break. When we return, we're talking more Tigers. They won last night over Rice 84-72. We'll talk more about the game, what was said afterwards. We'll do that next on Sports Time.
We are real sports talk. Sports 56 WHBQ. Available on your radio dial at 560 AM and 98.5 FM, as well as around the world online at sports56whbq.com. Take us with you everywhere by downloading the Sports 56 app. And at home, just say, Alexa, play Sports 56. Sports 56 and 95 FM.
Sis, did you get your W-2 yet?
Yes, I did.
Well, last year when I told you to file early to get your refund quick?
Yes, I remember.
Well, go ahead and call now, and you can get your refund fast.
Thanks. That's why I love you. Always looking out for your little sis.
To get your taxes filed quick and get your refund fast, go to Brenton Tax Service, located in Midtown Memphis on Madison Avenue. We may not be related to you, but at Brenton Tax Service, we protect you like family.
Exercise. The exercise coach is ready for you. Strength training only takes 20 minutes twice a week with special computerized exercise equipment designed to maximize your workouts and minimize your time. An exercise coach gives you personal workouts by one-on-one with a trainer. Check out the exercise coach at exercisecoach.com/Lakeland or exercisecoach.com/Hollywood. Sign up for exercise coach. Your age, injury, or knowledge.
What if you could unlock over $1 million in personal and business credit? That's exactly what Ray Reynolds can do for you. I'm talking about protecting your family and building your business with $100,000 in personal or business cash credit. And Ray can help you rebuild your credit score to 750. Ray Reynolds isn't just any expert. He helped the security chief of TRW that became Experian, one of the most trusted credit bureaus. If you're looking to get your finances on track, Ray is the man you should call for a 750 credit score. Call Ray at 800-427-5991. 800-427-5991. Join his live webinars and attend his weekly workshops to learn the insider strategies for hitting your personal and business goals. Ready for a 750 credit score and your first $100,000 in credit? Call Ray Reynolds now at 800-427-5991. That's 800-427-5991.
Licensing costs, registration fees, taxes, and dealer doc fee of $899.50, which are to be paid by the consumer. Example, stock number SC1264070, MSRP $48,840, dealer discount $4,000, $2,000 customer cash, $3,000 bonus cash, sale price $39,840, interest starts at date of purchase on approved credit, expires 3/3/25.
Good afternoon. Trying to clean up this wreck out here on Bill Morris Parkway going outbound. That's eastbound Bill Morris right there near Ridgeway and Hickory Hill. Trying to finish up the paperwork on a wreck that happened earlier, 40 westbound. It's over there around Warford. It is in its cleanup stages. So is this one on 55 southbound at 3rd. If your lawn needs some help this time of the year, call Lawn Solutions 867-5626. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
Welcome back into Sports Time. Bryant Landon with you this afternoon. No Brett. He'll be back tomorrow. He's taking a couple of days off. Let's talk more about the Tigers and their win over Rice last night. We talked a lot about it. Really spent the entire first segment discussing it. But I mentioned the really good game by Nicholas Jourdain. A really solid performance from him. I know a lot of people have been talking about his role this year, the way he's been playing in some of these games, kind of struggling. A lot of people thinking maybe he should be receiving less minutes. And I go back to watching him last year, being a part of that team last year, and the way he would communicate on defense, the way that, how defensively sound he was on that team last year really stood out. Of kind of nobody was talking on that defense last year, and then we kind of came to learn that team didn't like each other very much. This year's team's completely different. This team is locked in. They're engaged. You see everyone's talking on defense. Everyone's talking on offense. The communication is there. Wasn't there last year. But Nicholas Jourdain struggled this year. I think we can all agree that Nicholas Jourdain has not played the way that we thought he would play as kind of that one returner, taking that leadership role that we thought in the offseason. He just hasn't. But after the game, Penny Hardaway, while talking with Dave Woloshin on the radio, said that he had a talk with Nicholas Jourdain and kind of talked about the way he'd been seeing, how he'd been playing in recent games, what he wanted to see from Nicholas Jourdain, and kind of going back to the reason why he wanted him so bad from Temple, getting him to transfer to Memphis from Temple, and that they had that conversation, and that, he thought Nicholas Jourdain took it really well, and then came out tonight and you saw the type of performance he had. Nicholas Jourdain then was on with Dave Woloshin. So Dave asked him about that. Hey, Penny Hardaway just told us about a conversation that y'all had earlier this week. And Nicholas Jourdain said, yeah, we had a really tough conversation, and Penny Hardaway really, kind of went in deep about how he thought I was playing and the way he wanted me to play versus how I had been producing. And that, he said something, I'm paraphrasing, of course, that he could have taken that, he could have left that meeting, and it really, he could have taken it personally, and it could have affected him and really affected the way he played the rest of the season. But he said he took it. They had practice later that afternoon after the meeting, and that he really thought about it the entire practice and the entire day, and that, he woke up the next day and said, I got to be better. I know I can be better. I know I can be a more effective player, and he wanted to come out last night and show what he had, and I thought he did a great job doing that. What he did, I mentioned it, offensive rebounds, 5 offensive rebounds that led to baskets, was huge last night for the Tigers. Having 19 points was really big for the Tigers. A couple block shots was really huge, and so I'll be curious to watch Nicholas Jourdain and how he plays over these last couple games in the regular season. What you could get out of him in the postseason. He also said, and I thought it was interesting because a lot of people have been talking about his 3-point shooting, and last year would take a handful of corner threes and knock them down. This year you've seen him, especially in recent games, pass up on those shots. He'll have an open three, he'll pass out, and everyone's going, shoot. Come on, you're wide open, take a shot. And he said last night with Dave that he lost a lot of confidence this year, and one of the big reasons was seeing guys sag off of him, giving him that space at the 3-point line, daring him to shoot, because they didn't, they thought, hey, probably a good chance he doesn't make this, and that really dinged his confidence. And so hopefully we see a more confident Nicholas Jourdain. We certainly saw it last night with a really impressive performance. Another guy I wanted to point out, Dink Yates last night came in. This is a guy that we learned earlier this week we knew he was a walk-on coming into the season, but was put on scholarship at some point earlier this year, but has not played a lot. I talked about it after the game on Sunday. The last time he saw meaningful minutes was 8 minutes against Arkansas State back in non-conference. Has seen a minute or two, obviously, in garbage time late in games. But he came in last night, I thought looked really good in the first half, gave Memphis some nice minutes, had a steal, had a couple of buckets. I thought did a nice job. Second half, I thought kind of got a little exposed defensively, and you saw Penny Hardaway pull him after that. And it was kind of a couple weird sequences where Tigers are playing man, and his guy is the guy that's bringing the ball up the court. So he's guarding this guy on the perimeter, and maybe a more shifty player able to take him to the rim and get some easier layups. And so I just think that was a bad position for Dink Yates to be in. He's a guy that I think you want down low on the post instead of guarding a guy out on the perimeter. But definitely some good things and definitely some things to work on last night for the Tigers.
Yeah, for sure. So I know last night the big story was Dane Danger.
Mm-hmm.
Dane Danger stepping up, he recorded his second straight double-double, I believe, is his fifth or sixth of the season so far. Yeah. I mean, dude's playing incredible, was asked to step up, was asked to be that big man for the Tigers, and has excelled. It exceeded all expectations, I would say. Recording 10 of the 40 rebounds that the Tigers had last night, which is always huge in the game of basketball, is winning that rebound battle, which the Tigers did fairly handedly. But that kind of brings me back. So I'll be honest, I've been a little bit out of the loop with Tiger basketball.
Okay.
So I wanted to ask you, what happened to Moussa Cisse? I know he was brought in to be that big guy.
Sure.
The dude's 6'11". Dane Danger only standing at 6'9", which is kind of crazy to say because, in the world of basketball, being 6'9" is very different from being 6'11".
Especially playing the center position.
Absolutely. Yeah. And he's being called to, and I know a guy that big is being called to be that big guy. And I look and I see Moussa Cisse played 13 minutes last night, only recorded 2 points, and has kind of been very quiet with the team. Is he injured? Is he hurt? Is he just, being set aside because he hasn't been producing what Memphis's kind of new standard is being? Because I know Dane Danger got the call and has been crushing it as the big man. And I don't think we have any regrets about that. But my mind kind of wonders and says, what's the deal with Cisse? Sure. I mean, he's supposed to be that big guy, but it just seems like throughout this entire year, he has not had the same level of production, the same level of intensity. I remember it was week 1 with Memphis Tigers, and you were telling us about how he had to get that kind of kick in the pants wake up call after that first game. Like, dude, you're 6'11",
right. You're
a big guy, and you're letting these short little fellas get it past you, make all these little shots. What are you doing? So I just wanted to get your thoughts on what's going on with Moussa.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Last night I think just maybe not the right game situationally for Moussa. And the Tigers, I think their biggest issue, if you want to point out an issue, might be the depth down low. But, I think Penny Hardaway has done a nice job of using all three of the big men, and now, Dink Yates, who you can put at that 4, is kind of more in play. But, being able to rotate Moussa and Dane and Jourdain, and finding ways, we've seen 4 guard lineups, 1 big. We've seen the 2 big and 3 guards. We've seen even, Dane Danger and Moussa Cisse on the floor together. It goes back to the game against UAB, because for a while there, Moussa Cisse was starting. There were a lot of games where Dane Danger was playing more minutes than Moussa, but he was just coming off the bench and being productive. In that game, obviously facing Yaxel Lindenborg, who going into the season was the preseason AAC Conference Player of the Year, preseason Player of the Year. I think Penny Hardaway just wanted a different look, maybe thinking that the aggressiveness of Dane Danger, what he can kind of do, being a little more physical than Moussa Cisse, gave Memphis an advantage. We saw it. I mean, it worked. I mean,
yeah,
it was
for sure.
It was huge. And I think Penny Hardaway, we've seen over his entire coaching career at Memphis, if something works, he wants to keep going with it.
Yeah.
If something's going bad, he wants to switch it up. If something's going good, he wants to stick with it. And so I think seeing that game, seeing how how Dane Danger played, he wanted to stick with that and use that. And I think we talked about it maybe Tuesday with I forgot Matt Infield. I think we were talking with, and I think we brought this up. I think a big question for me, and I think for a lot of people, was how does Moussa Cisse respond to being benched? I would say he's responded really well. He's maybe not playing a ton of minutes. You're seeing him, it varies from game to game. But I do think when he comes in, he's getting a couple baskets, he's grabbing a couple rebounds, he's doing what you need him to do, and I think is playing with high motor and playing the way you want him to do. But I just think it was something that Penny Hardaway, people were kind of calling for it. People were saying, should they put Dane Danger back? And I remember asking Jason Munns a couple times, hey, Dane Danger's playing really well off the bench. is there a time where they put him
Yeah.
back? And he kind of said, well, I think he likes the idea of Dane feeling the game out from the bench, seeing it play out, and then checking in and going in. But then, obviously, you wanted to match that physicality with Yaxel, and they went with it. It worked extremely well. You stick with it, and it's worked ever since. And now, it'd be crazy talk to even think about, Dane Danger coming off the bench. So
Yeah.
I would say, we talked about it earlier. Darian asked, was it Penny Hardaway's best move of his career? It's one of them. It has been huge. It's really paid off, and he is playing really well. And I think the other thing, and we really don't have a lot of time to dive into it, but the comments earlier this week by Dane Danger about where he said that he had another year of eligibility with Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
And our friend Jason Munz, who we'll talk to tomorrow, and we will certainly ask him more about this. He wrote a story doing a great job. Go check it out on Commercial Appeal. A great job highlighting the situation with Dane Danger and the fact that it'd probably be pretty tough for him to get another year of eligibility. Briefly, kind of the gist of it. Every player the COVID year got, which was the 2020-21 season, got an additional year of eligibility because of the craziness of COVID. That was only given to active players. Dane Danger was not an active player that year. He was a freshman at Baylor, was not an active player that year because he was redshirting due to some eligibility issues. So he would not be eligible for that additional year at Baylor. He redshirted that year, started the second season at Baylor, played a handful of games, I don't know off the top of my head exactly how many, and then transferred to Illinois, sat out the rest of that season. I don't know if in his mind he thinks the COVID year should be an additional year, or maybe he thinks somewhere along the way of transferring that because he had to sit out the rest of that year because he transferred mid-season, if he thinks that he should get an additional year for that. But Jason Munz wrote it really well. Caleb Mills, who played for Memphis, tried to do the same thing. He transferred mid-season and then tried to get an extra year of eligibility once his time was done at the University of Memphis, and the NCAA turned it down. So it sounds like it would be tough for him to do. Jason Munz did tweet this out last night, and that's why I bring this up. Dane Danger was asked about his eligibility situation and outlook. This was the quote from Dane Danger. Quote, "I'm not sure. I'm looking into it a little bit more. Still some things I've got to clear up from my time at Baylor. I'm just trying to stay present. Whatever happens, happens." So, it sounds like he is looking into it. He's trying to figure out. Definitely a good attitude, though, of staying present. Whatever happens, happens. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll definitely ask Jason Munz, and we might even bring it up later this afternoon with Greg Gaston on kind of this Dane Danger and eligibility situation. But let's go ahead and get to another break. And when we come back, really fun night outside of the Tiger game of college basketball. We're going to talk about some of the games that took place, what it meant in terms of bubble talk. We'll do that next on Sports Time.
I'm so excited.
I had a feeling you'd be excited.
That doesn't even begin to describe how I feel about the new Central Barbecue location on Central.
Well, technically, it's the same location.
Same location, but a very different Central Barbecue on Central.
I get what you're saying, but I don't want to confuse people. The new Central Barbecue location on Central is the same place as the old Central Barbecue on Central.
But it's so much more. It's big, for one thing.
It is a whole lot bigger. Well, I think it has to be.
Because everybody in Memphis is going to be flocking to the new Central Barbecue location on Central.
Where the old Central Barbecue on Central used to be.
Details.
Surprise! Your expenses this month were way higher than you expected. Also, you forgot to renew your website domain, and now you're in a bidding war.
You should see the look on your face.
At Progressive, we know small business owners don't usually like surprises because they cost you money. But a good surprise that could save you money? Getting a commercial auto quote from Progressive.
Plus, the fridge died in the break room, and now everything smells weird.
Surprise yourself. See if you can save in as little as 7 minutes at ProgressiveCommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
I'm Gary York. I'm the service director of Lexus in Memphis. Our service department wants to be more than just a place where you get your oil changed. We do glass repair, windshield replacement, recalibration of your camera and sonar systems, even wheel repair, tire tire replacement, all the things you would expect from a luxury automotive dealer. Please check out our website. You can schedule your appointment, check out our specials, hours of operation, or if you'd like to do it in person, please reach out to one of our associates at 901-271-5199.
Tiger Nation, Memphis women's basketball is back in action at the El Marone Fieldhouse Saturday, March 1st at 2 o'clock when the Tigers welcome the Tulsa Golden Hurricane to the 901. Prior to the game, we will honor our senior class, and at halftime, we will recognize the legendary career of Tamika Whitmore by retiring her jersey. It's time to stand up, Memphis, and cheer on your Tigers in their final home game of the season. Be sure to get your tickets now at GoTigersGo.com.
Now, back to Sports Time. Sports This hour is brought to you by Lexus Tires. Here are your hosts, Let's Talk Sports with Brian Davis.
Well, we've talked a ton about the Tigers and their win last night over Rice. We got to talk some other college basketball. Last night, I mean, an incredible night of college basketball. Some of the big games that stuck out to me, Auburn all over Ole Miss at home. We had that game right here on Sports 56. 106-76, the final score. Just an all-out beating from Auburn, a game where Janai Broome, 24 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists for the big man. Just super efficient, 56% shooting for Auburn, 52% from 3, 11 for 21. Just a really, really good performance by Auburn. And, just everyone's been talking about Duke, obviously, with what they've done in their last 2 games, beating Miami by 37 earlier this week, and Illinois by, however many. They beat them by 40-something over the weekend. That race between Duke and Auburn in the NCAA tournament is going to be fun to watch. It feels like, obviously, things could happen, but right now, if the tournament started today and the way the tournament looks, those are going to be your top 2 overall seeds in the NCAA tournament. Seeing how they fare in their conference tournaments and how they fare in the NCAA tournament, that's going to be really fun to watch because both of these teams super dominant. I've seen a lot of people, I don't want to harbor on this for a long time, but I've seen people pointing out that the way both of these offenses are playing are 2 of the best we've seen in years, metrically speaking. If you look at KenPom and how they rank all-time teams, in the KenPom era, these are 2 of the best offenses we've seen in a really long time. So 2 fun teams to watch, and Auburn all over Ole Miss last night. A game that got a little tricky late. St. John's on the road against Butler. They won 76-70. Super close at the end. Butler put up a really good fight, but ultimately St. John's able to knock down shots when it mattered at the end of the game to survive on the road in that one. We had a half-court shot. Michigan State on the road against Maryland. I brought this up with Kevin Sweeney yesterday, getting his thoughts on the game, and he thought it was going to be a great game. He gave the edge to Maryland at home, and certainly a game that Maryland could have won at home, but it was a prayer of a shot at the end of the game for Michigan State to win that one 58-55. And then the bubble games. When I got home last night from the Tigers game, it was all bubble games on TV, it felt like, in games that really mattered. Some of the ones that jumped out, Vanderbilt, they pick up another huge win on the road, this time against number 12 Texas A&M, 86-84 the final score. Vanderbilt, they picked up a win over the weekend too, so they're right now safely in most brackets, you look like, but certainly another win, especially on the road against an AP top 25 team, that will always help your chances. And so they got that last night. Vanderbilt now has 3 wins against AP top 15 teams. So they have been playing well. And, you just look at it, we talk about there are several teams out there that you can point this to. Louisville is one of them, the turnaround that they're having under Pat Kelsey. But this turnaround for Vanderbilt, just really have not been able to get much going. I don't want to get too in the weeds on it. There was stuff last year, a lot of injuries, different things. A couple years ago, they had a chance to break through and make the NCAA tournament and lost a game or two down the stretch. But this year, Mark Byington comes in. He has to pretty much reload with a new roster. He comes out and, say what you want about it, if it's corny or not. But before the season starts, names every player on the roster as a point guard. And this team's come out, they're bought in, and, no expectations at all going into the season, but they go out there and they've played really, really well this season. It feels like they're pretty safe right now in the NCAA tournament. And now for Texas A&M, they've now lost back-to-back games. Their next 2 games against Florida and Auburn. And Florida coming up this Saturday.
That doesn't look good at all.
On the road at Florida. I don't know Auburn, if Auburn's at home or on the road. But Saturday at Texas A&M. On the road, at Florida on the road. And Florida is ready to open up a can after losing on the road to Georgia. That is going to be one of those games where
scary.
Texas A&M's going to have to lock in. They've got the guys. I mean, defensively, what they do on the defensive end of the court, how they rebound the ball, grab offensive boards. Doing that will keep you in pretty much any game you play, but the struggle has been knocking down shots for them, and I feel like Florida's going to come out with a lot of firepower on Saturday, so that will be a fun game to watch. Kentucky, huge win for them on the road against Oklahoma. Obviously, Oklahoma on the bubble. Joe Lunardi has Oklahoma as the second team in, the last 4 in. And this win certainly would have helped them kind of get a little bit safer on the bracket. Shelby Mast, who updates his bracket every single day over at bracketwag.com, he has Oklahoma in the bracket. He has them on the 10 line. But certainly last night, Oklahoma, opportunities to win that game against Kentucky. Former Oklahoma Otega Owe was awesome last night. Had some big-time buckets late in that game to secure the win. That was a really fun game. Got chippy at the end of the game. We had to stop the handshake line because guys were jawing at each other and we had a little bit of a scuffle breakout. Hot take for you, Landon. Get rid of the handshake line in college basketball. Just get away. Get rid of it. I don't like it.
You have my support.
Okay, thank you.
I'm with you.
A lot of people push back on that, but I don't get it. Here's my reasoning behind it. I'll try to be quick because I know we got to get to a break.
Talk to him.
So, college football, game's over. Everyone just goes to the center of the field and you just say what's up to whoever. You say good game to whoever. In high school, you line up at the 50-yard line and you walk through and you shake hands with every single person. That doesn't happen in college football. Mm-hmm. College baseball, you don't even sometimes they don't even shake hands at the end of series. A lot of times at the end of series, after the third and final game, everyone will shake hands, but it's not after every single game. College basketball, I don't know why we have to line up and shake everybody's hands after a game, especially in these conference games, when it's getting testy, it's getting heated in there. Just do away with it. Let's just do what the NBA does, where everyone just kind of goes to the center of the court. If you have a boy, if you want to say what's up to somebody, you go to the middle of the court and you shake hands, all of that stuff. But I'm not a huge fan of everyone line up, single file line, and shake hands.
Well, even to speak to that, you and I have been familiar with something like that occurring when we played Houston High School football together.
Yeah.
Where after, I think it was like a rivalry game against Germantown or something where we won at their place and, they were getting real chippy and they were getting really mad. People came out and were just like, separate. We're not doing the handshake line. We're going our separate ways. And it's not like anybody's losing sleep over that. But it's kind of the same thing of what you were mentioning with these conference games and these huge games that these teams are playing. I'm pretty sure Florida didn't want to shake a single hand of any Georgia player after that game of what occurred.
And certainly not last night, Kentucky and Oklahoma.
Usually after a win like that, it's storm the court, have a party, everybody else walks and goes their separate ways. So I totally agree. I feel and the point I bring up about even in high school, that happens sometimes where the line gets broken up. It's not a necessary part of the game. And stuff just happens.
If we want to treat these guys like professionals, which everyone says now with NIL, they're professionals now.
They're getting compensated as such.
Let's eliminate the handshake line. Coaches get murdered for not wanting to shake hands because they see the chippiness. I'm will go and argue anybody. Let's get rid of the handshake line in college
send some
basketball. Yes, we will. Well, we got to wrap up this hour and get to a break. We're going to switch gears on the other side. When we return, we're going to talk some NBA. Keith Smith from Spot Track and the Front Office Show. He joins us next. Talk the NBA.
The new Silverado deal of the year, maybe the decade, is here in Olive Branch at All-Star Chevrolet, where all the Silverados are. Yes, you can get financing down to 2.9, plus make no payments for 90 days. Finance your new Blazer, 1.9, no payments for 90 days. Look, it's still love month, so come get a new Silverado or Blazer. You will love no payments till May, and your good credit deserves it. If you're law enforcement, first responders, healthcare, military, education, recent grad, you get an extra $500 bonus. And if you're looking for certified Silverado Tahoe Suburbans, they're right here at All-Star Chevy in Olive Branch. Every pre-owned you want, Fords, Hondas, Hyundais, dozens of Silverados, they're all here. And if you have any vehicle you want to sell, bring it here to All-Star Chevy in Olive Branch and get the most money for it today. Together, let's drive. AllStarAutoGroup.com.
Step up your wings game at East Coast Wings and Grill. With 60 wing flavors and 7 heat indexes, do you have what it takes to turn the heat of your wings up to insanity? East Coast Wings and Grill is family friendly with a large variety menu to satisfy the whole bunch. Sign up today for your loyalty program and taste the rewards. For every dollar you spend, you collect a point. Earn 100 points and receive a $5 reward. Next to Lowe's on Highway 64 in Marlin, try America's best wings at East Coast Wings and Grill.
To be invested with Betterment is to believe in better, whether it's saving for today or building wealth for tomorrow. We help people and small businesses put their money to work. We automate to make saving simpler. We optimize to make investing smarter. We build innovative technology backed by financial experts. For anyone who's ever said, "I think I can do better." So be invested in better with Betterment. Get started at Betterment.com. Investing involves risk, performance not guaranteed.
This traffic brought to you by Brinson Tax Service. They protect you like family.
Sports 56 traffic.
Good afternoon, MPD on the scene of a couple of accidents. Midtown traffic has increased right on schedule, actually, on 240 South from Union all the way down to Norris. Watching it build pretty good. Certain sections of Sam Cooper going outbound. No shortage of radar south of Memphis on I-55. Working your way down through South Haven into DeSoto County. If your lawn needs help this time of the year, you're not alone. Lawn Solutions can help with over 30 years experience. Just give them a call at 867-5626. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
WHBQ Memphis and W253 DL Memphis. With Dave Malone, weekday mornings from 10 to 11. Time to talk NBA with Keith Smith from Spot Rack and the Front Office Show. And on Twitter X at Keith Smith NBA. Here's Keith Smith talking basketball with Bryant and Brett.
Keith Smith joins us now to talk the NBA from Spot Track and the Front Office Show. A lot to get into today. Keith, thanks so much for joining us. Let's start with the Memphis Grizzlies. Now 2-2 out of the All-Star break. It's been tricky. 3 road games against, I think, 3 good Eastern Conference opponents to start. Then they come back home able to beat the Phoenix Suns. But we've seen in 2 of those games, Ja Morant kind of starting to remind fans who he is and the closer that he can be. I think some people, especially locally, were starting to get worried that Ja hasn't been taking over late in games, kind of like what we were used to seeing earlier in his career. But now 10 points in the fourth quarter against the Magic that helped lead them to that win. 15 points and 2 massive shots in the fourth quarter against Phoenix to send that game into overtime. What have you seen from Ja Morant this season and over these last couple of weeks? And do you think that maybe he's starting to get back to that guy that can put the team on his back in the fourth quarter?
Yeah, I think especially that Phoenix game. That's the kind of game where you really got to win that one. Phoenix is not playing very well. They're having a really tough year. ideally, you don't even want to be in position after forcing overtime, but that happens, over the course of a long season. And I thought, his play down the stretch was so good, but just breaking down the defense. And then even into the overtime period, he had a handful of plays where he, just kind of got where he needed to be to set teammates up and make things happen. And that's huge, that's the guy, right? As much as Jaren Jackson Jr. has had a great season, and he's probably going to be an All-NBA guy, and we've seen some other Grizzlies step forward, John Morant's still the one who makes this team go from good to great, and they need him to do that on a regular basis.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned that game against Phoenix. The other guy that really shined, especially I thought in OT, was the rookie Jalen Wells, who I thought stepped up big. I mean, you don't see many second-round rookies in the league that are playing big-time minutes in the fourth quarter and in overtime and doing the things that he's doing. I mean, there was a catch-and-shoot three in the corner that he let it fly in overtime. He had this little kind of tough layup, and then had got open when John Morant was trying to find somebody, got open for a dunk that gave the Grizzlies a 3-point lead in overtime that led to that win. I mean, all of that stuff, big-time plays in overtime. What have you seen from the rookie Jalen Wells?
Yeah, he's not afraid of the moment, and not only is he not afraid, but he wants it, right? He wants the ball to come his way. My favorite shot of that, well, I'm going to go co-favorite, the no hesitation corner three. Yeah. I mean, just came off that screen, caught it, and you knew like he was letting it rip, and he drilled that one. And then the step-through layup, why that one was so good was he tried that earlier in the game and got blocked on that play. And, it's just, all right, I'm going back to it because this time I think I can make it. And he made sure he got a little bit more distance away from Bol and made that one. And then the cool thing off both of those shots, he immediately picks up full court on Bradley Beal because it's, that's their only ball handler. So, yeah, he's, what a surprise, what a great, find, by the Memphis, scouting staff there to get him in the second round. And those are the kind of players that, when you're in a position like the Grizzlies are in where you're getting increasingly more expensive with your contracts because players have developed well and become star-level guys, you're in a spot where you really need those other guys to come through. And that's, huge when you can get a guy like Jalen Wells to be that good, for you on a second-round contract.
Yeah, I love what you mentioned about the defense, especially in OT. The Phoenix had that inbound. They called the timeout with 2 seconds or so left in overtime, and Jalen Wells on that inbound picking up Grayson Allen and making it impossible. I mean, that's the guy that they wanted to inbound to. They had to instead throw it to Kevin Durant, who was kind of down low, closer to the block, and now he has to try to sprint to the three-point line to try to throw up a shot. It felt like, especially when G.G. Jackson and Vince Williams Jr. were coming back from injury, a lot of people talking, okay, one of these guys is going to take that starting spot, and you're not going to have Jalen Wells in the starting lineup. But the more I watch this guy play, what he's doing offensively, picking up every single night the best perimeter player on the opposing team, I pause because it's hard to think about two rookies being starters for a playoff team, but it's harder and harder the more I watch Jalen Wells play to think about someone taking his spot the way he's playing right now.
Yeah, I mean, we're so deep into the season, where we're approaching like the three-quarter mark now. I would be shocked if he came out of the starting group, especially for Williams or Jackson. Those guys are good, don't get me wrong, but I just think Jalen Wells has fit so nicely. A big part of with Vince Williams and G.G. Jackson, especially G.G. Jackson, is like what they can do with the ball. And Jalen Wells, you've already got guys who are going to have the ball a lot between John Morant, between Jaren Jackson Jr., between Desmond Bane. And then you want to make sure Zach Edey gets his touches. Jalen Wells is the guy you don't need to do a whole lot for. You want to get him a few shots here and there, make sure he's in rhythm, but you're not having to run stuff for him, and that's so huge. And then with Zach Edey, I think the nice thing with him is he's kind of the opener, almost, if we feel, that new baseball term there, where like he's out there for the beginning, generally of each half, and then he'll get a second run a little later, but they more often than not, they're closing with Jackson, Clark, or Aldama.
Yeah.
So, the fact that they're starting with the two rookies, I think is fine because they're not overdoing it where it's like, all right, these guys must be on the floor. But Wells, with his play on both ends of the floor, he's deserved every minute he's getting and should be on the floor to both start and close these games.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. On the other side, that Phoenix team, you mentioned them, I mean, just kind of a mess this year. They had such high expectations having those 3 stars on the same roster when they acquired Kevin Durant. What does this offseason look like for Phoenix? Because, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but you have, I think it was Ramona Shelburne on deadline day saying that, it's kind of awkward in the locker room, that it's kind of weird out there at shoot around. You've got Bradley Beal, all the talk about them wanting to trade him. Then, 24, 48 hours before the deadline, now it switches and they want to get Kevin Durant out of there. What does this offseason look like for Phoenix?
Yeah, I think it's become increasingly clear. We're going to see Kevin Durant get traded. Yeah. He's not going to be on the Suns, when we start next season. And I think he knows that. I think the Suns know that. I think the Suns have kind of come to a determination that this group doesn't work. They've seen it now, with those guys together and with the players around them. It's just not working the way they wanted to. They've tried, and it just hasn't gotten there. And Devin Booker's younger. He's been their franchise guy. They're not going to move him, I wouldn't imagine, unless they completely get blown away with an offer. And they found they can't move Bradley Beal because teams are going to be so leery of that no-trade clause and the fact that he can just, scuttle anything. So, one, you got to find a place, that wants him, and then he has to be okay with it. So that leads you to, all right, if we're going to do something big and we're going to reset this team, that means we've got to move Kevin Durant. I think that's where we're headed this summer. And then everything else will kind of orbit around that. Do you move on from guys like Grayson Allen or Royce O'Neal and smaller trades? Do you use the Durant trade as a way to maybe try to get yourself out from under the second apron, maybe out from under the first apron, if you can, make it workable? I think those are the kind of conversations you have to have if you're the Suns, because to some extent you're resetting. I'm not going to call it a rebuild, but you're resetting everything moving forward, so you might as well do it in a way that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Talking NBA with Keith Smith. He joins us every week from Spa Track and the Front Office Show. The news came out earlier today that Greg Popovich had an emotional in-person meeting with the team today. Also issued a statement that he would not return to the bench this season, but hopes to return in the future. I thought it was interesting. The ESPN story also said that it was the first time the team has seen him since his stroke. What do you make of the news coming out of San Antonio today and Pop's future with all of this health concerns?
Yeah, I think, we're just in a spot where, with Pop, we've been kind of wondering, when is this going to kind of come to the end? And I think with him, what has been, he's still a good coach. He still enjoys it. And getting Victor Wembanyama there, I think, has really energized him back to, all right, let's, keep doing this. And I also have to wonder at this point in his life, is there the question of, if I don't do this, what do I do, right? If I'm not coming in every single day, but, we may head to a position where it is, hey, we still want you around, but the day-to-day grind of being an NBA head coach and the travel and all the, the lack of sleep and all the stuff that comes with that, maybe it's better for him to go. But I think people have kind of forgotten. He came out of the front office. That's where he was, before he became the coach. Maybe it's, hey, let's move into more of a front office type role or an advisor type role, get somebody in there long term, and that's where we go. So I think that's maybe, where we're headed with the Spurs, and it's going to be weird. We're so deep and so long into this now that it's going to feel like really, wow, like we're just kind of going in a completely different direction. But I think that's likely where we're headed with this.
Yeah, you're right. It's a weird, it's a tricky situation because I'm sure you're right. I'm sure Pop wants to be out there coaching, but obviously these health issues are too much. Yesterday on the show, I was telling Darian and Landon, I said the game to watch tonight in the NBA is Detroit and Boston, and boy was it interesting. I thought it was going to be I was hoping it was going to be a good game. I did not think though that Detroit would win that one last night, 117-97, now 8 straight for Detroit. The Pistons now 9-2 in the month of February. What did you see in that game last night? Because it wasn't a poor shooting night for Boston. They were 21 for 49 from three, but Detroit, what they did in the paint, 62 points in the paint. What did you see last night, and what have you seen from this Detroit team?
Yeah, I think with the Pistons, what we saw was a team. They're ready, right? They are doing this now. They're there with this. So I think they're in a really good place where it's been. This is where we start to think about. All right, it was the step forward season. Now it's the step forward has happened. It's really the. All right, now we move into what's next, and I think we're in a spot with Detroit in that game last night. That was a chance to kind of announce themselves to everybody.
Yeah.
Playing the champs, and I think they really did well. They brought all the energy, they brought all the physicality. From the Celtics side of it, because they've been asked that today a couple times. With are you worried about it? And they didn't play with Jaylen Brown. Luke Cornett, who's a key guy, wasn't out there either. They had won. I think they had won 6 in a row going into that one. So yeah, I mean, more for me, it's Detroit's for real.
Yeah,
they're really, really good, and they're going to be a playoff team. And right now, it looks like they're certainly going to be the 6th seed at the very least. And it wouldn't shock me if they move up even higher in the standings before the playoffs start.
That's incredible. Yeah, only right now a game out from that 4th spot where Indiana is right now. So yeah, they could definitely move up a little bit. I mean, just an unbelievable story to go back to last year when we were talking earlier in the season, one of the worst starts to any professional team in the history of sports. And now just a year later, they're sitting here in the 6th seed right now. JB Bickerstaff, it feels like that move, really both sides, I thought, benefited from that. Cleveland, you see where they are now, number 1 in the Eastern Conference, but then JB Bickerstaff goes over to Detroit and has them in a really, really good spot right now. He's got to be in the conversation for Coach of the Year, right?
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, I think, Noah said to Kenny Atkinson, who has done a wonderful job with JB Bickerstaff's old team, kind of taking the Cavs from being a good team to a great team. I think JB Bickerstaff, they've won more games this year than they won the last 2 seasons combined. I mean, and they get it. They made roster changes and things look a little bit different. But yeah, I think we're in a spot with them where it really is. Yeah, this guy, they are a special team. They have played really, really well, and I am excited to see where it goes. And he deserves a lot of credit. Trajan Langdon should be in the Executive of the Year conversations as well. And I think you're going to see some of the individual award stuff happen. Cade Cunningham, I think there's a good chance he's going to be an All-NBA guy, and I wouldn't be surprised if Malik Beasley either wins or at least gets a lot of love for Sixth Man of the Year as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Cade Cunningham because this is a guy that, out of college I was really excited about, and it's never been an issue of talent or skill with Cade Cunningham at this level. It's always been availability. It always feels like he gets injured. Now this year has been very available for this team, and it's paying off. He's played so well. What have you thought about the play of Jalen Duren, the former Memphis Tiger? I know a lot of people here locally paying attention to what he does in the NBA. What have you thought about him?
Yeah, I think he's really come along nicely. He's always been, super athletic and able to do a lot of stuff around the basket on both ends of the floor. The questions have been defensively. Was he going to be able to execute various things in a scheme other than stand around the rim and be big? And he's shown that he can do different stuff. They've used him in different ways, kind of depending on who the opponent is. And I think that's huge, for him and for the Pistons. I think he's done a really nice job rebounding the ball this year. I think he's, really improved on that end. And then I think offensively, what's been really fun is they put him in positions where we're going to put you in positions to have to be a playmaker, where you're going to have to do something with the ball in your hands. It can't just always be, catch and dunk. And I think he's really shown he's got some passing chops and he can do some stuff. So, Cade Cunningham gets the lion's share of the credit, and then you got like Beasley and Harris and Hardaway and those guys. But, Jalen Duren's been a huge part of this and is going to be a huge part of it as this team continues to grow.
Yeah. Sticking in the Eastern Conference, there was a story in The Athletic yesterday that was talking about the New York Knicks and saying, kind of while they are the third seed right now in the Eastern Conference, that and I don't remember who wrote this story in The Athletic, but this person did not think that the Knicks should be in the conversation of the current NBA elites of this season, kind of saying the Cavaliers, the Boston Celtics, and the Oklahoma City Thunder are in a group of their own, and then you have the Knicks after a little bit of a gap. We'll see the Knicks here in Memphis Friday night. It'll be the second time the Grizzlies played them. The first time at Madison Square Garden was not a fun game for the Grizzlies or the fans watching. But when you look at this Knicks team, how good do you think this group is, and how far of a gap, if any, do you think there is between what they're doing and what Boston and Cleveland are doing?
Yeah, I think it's pretty far between them and the other teams. It's pretty much out there, pretty loudly too, that they have struggled against Boston and Cleveland and Oklahoma City, the four best teams, in the league. And not only have they struggled, but they've gotten beaten badly by those
this
teams
year against those teams.
Yeah, 0-7, and it's a lot of blowouts in there. And I think as you kind of watch them, you can see why. It's all those teams have guards who can attack, off the dribble, and they put Karl-Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson in these, situations where they have to really try to hang in there and defend, and it's just not what they're good at. Those guys are wonderful offensive players, but they're not very good defensively, and there's only so much Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby and Josh Hart can do to cover for those guys. They're going to get Mitchell Robinson back here, maybe even by this weekend, and that'll help quite a bit, I think. But they are struggling to get enough stops against the best teams, and that's a problem. They'll still be good in the postseason. They'll probably win a round, and then but it looks like right now they're steaming towards a second round matchup with the Celtics, and who knows? And I've even heard some people suggest would they rather drop to 4 and try to get the Cavs in the second round and instead of Boston, because they've had such a hard time, but they haven't had it any easier with Cleveland. So I think the Knicks are a very good team, but I think they've got real holes, and I think they're real holes that'll show up in a major way in the postseason.
Yeah, wow. Earlier this week, we saw Luka face off against his old team. It was in L.A., but obviously a game that everyone was eager to see. Nico Harrison was in attendance, kind of made himself prominently known that he was in attendance pregame in his blue blazer, leaned up on the score table. Luka went out there, started repping push-ups before the game started, kind of jokingly saying he was in shape. But then game started, and he did what the Lakers need him to do. Didn't go out for 40 points or anything like that, but did record the triple-double, did help the Lakers in the win. Now we're seeing a lot of stories come out about maybe even deeper reasons behind why the Mavericks were very willing to get rid of Luka Doncic, kind of talking about some of his tastes away from the basketball court, how he likes to drink regularly and do other things, and that they feel like that could lead to catastrophe down the road. What did you make of his performance against his old team and then some of these stories coming out?
Yeah, I thought, the way he played, it looked like for a moment in the first quarter, like we're going to have one of those nights where he was going to go for 50 or so. And then Dallas, apparently their scheme was, nope, not happening. You are not going to light us up like that. And I think what, ultimately ended up happening was that we're going to really try to, lock in to make sure that we can keep this from happening. And they really, sold out to defend him and make sure that he wasn't going to go off. But then what he did, which was great and super encouraging if you're a Lakers fan, was, all right, then I'll just play playmaker. And he got off the ball. He had 12 assists. He had countless hockey assists, too, where he was the one who got the ball moving and, really was kind of making things happen that way. And I think that's so, huge as you kind of, go forward is, all right, he can do this, right? He can kind of control things a little bit and just get things moving and keep us going. So I think that part's really exciting. And as far as all the stories go, enough already. Like, we don't need another, story. Like, you traded him. Okay, we get it. If you're still 3 weeks later trying to justify why you traded him by leaking more and more new stuff out to the media, Like, all you're telling me is, you didn't make a good deal. Like, stop trying to win people over. No one who doesn't like to trade is going to be happy about it with another story. What's next? Are we going to find out Luke has been kicking puppies in the Dallas area? Like, what are we doing? Like, it just is. We've gotten to the point, where it's so silly, the stuff that's coming out. And, I'll echo what multiple players have said. I don't really care if he's 400 pounds.
Yeah.
If he plays the way he plays, who cares, right? It doesn't matter.
That's
like,
right.
And that's going to be, one of the things that really, matters. And I get it. Like, if they have their reasons, which they very clearly did, okay, fine. Like, that's perfectly fine. We get it. But we just don't need to continue to do this, day over day over day like that.
Yeah, I'm with you. Last thing for you, Keith, and sticking with the Lakers, obviously the Mark Williams trade that obviously didn't go through, but a lot of people excited about what the Lakers could be with Mark Williams on that roster and kind of the talk about wanting that athletic center that could play above the rim. You don't have that guy anymore in Mark Williams, so you're kind of searching, looking for that replacement. And Jackson Hayes is the guy that's been getting the starter minutes. And you've kind of seen at times, I saw it a couple times in that game against Dallas, he's finding open space, being a lob threat for them. He's not going to go off for double-doubles or anything, but can he do enough to kind of get the Lakers into position where they can win one or two playoff series, or do you think that's going to be a massive hole once we get to the playoffs?
Yeah, I think in certain matchups he'll be just fine. But the problem is he's like a 20-minute-a-night guy.
Right.
And then it's what are you going to behind him? And we saw it in that Dallas game. What they went to was, all right, we're going to scramble, we're going to trap, we're going to do a bunch of different, well, you saw it in the Dallas game. The big one was the Denver game, where it was, all right, we're going to trap Jokic, we're going to double-team Jokic. And that's fine for a game.
Yeah.
But now Denver's seen that. If you run into them again, and as a team, in the playoffs, that's the whole thing is there's only so many adjustments you can make. You come in with a plan, and then, all right, this double teaming, trapping, scramble, run and jump defense stuff. That may work for a game or two, but once the other team kind of sees it, they've seen it and they figure it out, that's going to be where it gets tough, and that's going to be where it gets very hard for this Lakers team. Because Jackson Hayes is limited. He's a good player, but he's just a limited player behind them. And that's going to be something they're going to have to work through for sure.
Yeah, the Lakers are going to be an interesting team to watch as we get closer to the playoffs. But Keith, as always, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll do it again next week.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Keith. Keith Smith joining us every single week from SpotTrack and the Front Office Show. Make sure and go check out the Front Office Show. They do great work over there and always going live and keeping you updated with what's going on in the NBA. Well, let's go ahead and get to another break, and when we return, we're going to talk some wagering. Doug Kazarian from OnlyPlayers.com in Vegas. He joins us next.
Join the voice of the Tigers, Dave Woloshin, for Wolo and Friends. Weekday mornings from 10 to 11, here on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
Since 1948, in the alley, the Rendezvous. I'm with John Burgess. John, what's going on in the Rendezvous? Brett, after 76 years, we've decided to expand our product line. Anyone who's tasted our ribs is familiar with our vinegar base. It's now available in a 32-ounce jar. It's so good to base or marinate all meats. I even put a little bit on turnip greens. Something we've been using at the restaurant or at our house has been a Greek seasoning. My father was a cook, but my mother was a chef. And she was the one that put Greek seasoning on everything from the Mediterranean diet to steak. My mom used it on soup, salad, veggies, fish, any meat. It's a great seasoning and a flavor enhancer. My brother Nick figured out salt and pepper is more than just McCormick's and Morton's. He's come up with the perfect blend we use to coat our shoulders and our brisket, and he used to make it for his friends as Christmas gifts, and they loved it. All these products are available at Rendezvous or online for shipping as gifts and in many grocery stores. And if they're not in your favorite grocery store, ask your grocer to stock it. A beloved family of families still going strong since 1948. Rendezvous.
Briggs Powder Coating for a beautiful finish every time. Briggs Powder Coating specializes in automotive, ornamental, residential, and industrial coating. With two big airlines and the largest match ovens in the Mid-South, Briggs can accommodate all of your powder coating needs. Locally owned and operated since 2002, Briggs Powder Coating will customize a beautiful finish just for you. Drop by or call to see how Briggs Powder Coating can bring color to your life. 901-367-2771 or
Galaxy A16 5G or Moto G Power 5G 2024 with select plans. So you can stream games during Mad March hours, check the weather for April showers, and watch garden videos about May flowers. Straight Talk, real unlimited data. Available at Walmart and StraightTalk.com. Offer valid for 4/15/25. Taxes and fees apply. Requires purchase a single line Gold Unlimited plan or higher. For network management practices, visit StraightTalk.com.
It's your time to upgrade into a new ride from Gossett Volkswagen on the Pike. 2025 Jetta S, buy it now, $20,499. 2024 Taos SE, $249 a month or $28,616. More front and rear headroom and longer warranty than Crosstrek or CX-30. 2024 Tiguan S, more cargo space, torque, and warranty than Escape or RAV4. Only $279 a month. Plus all 2024 Atlas SE Peak Editions, $5,000 off MSRP. So get to Gossett Volkswagen today, 1875 Covington Pike, online, GossettVWMemphis.com. And remember, no reasonable offer will be refused. Gossett's where we're charging forward and charging less every day. If you want it, we got it at Gossett Volkswagen.
7,500 miles, 3,100 down. Taos RMO 56,983, MSRP 31,939. Tiguan RM 144,331, MSRP 31,363. Jetta SMO 45,444. Atlas 3,500 bonus customer cash 1,500. Includes all rebates and incentives. PF 895 excludes tax title and license. See dealer for complete details. Offer valid through end of the month with approved credit. Dealer stock only.
Radio show is back on WHBQ Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. Every Monday night at 6, hear the latest news on your Ole Miss Rebels with Nancy Porter with 24/7 Sports. Former Ole Miss defensive tackle Mike Fitzsimmons, Gordon Moore covering SEC sports ball, and former Ole Miss baseball announcer Gary Garvey from kickoff coverage throughout the extra innings. Your Ole Miss Sports on the Rebel Yell Hotline Show. Right here Monday night at 6 on Sports 56, 560 AM and 98.5 FM. Your Mid-South Sports Station.
Sports 56 traffic.
Good afternoon. It's been busy over here as they clean up this earlier rag. 55 southbound at 3rd. It's gotten heavier on Bill Morris Parkway going outbound. We've already had numerous accidents out there in that area, so give yourself extra time as it gets busy again. 240 getting on to 385. Bill Morris Parkway headed out towards Collierville. Weimer's Jewelry, serving the Memphis area for well over 40 years. No matter what the occasion is, you'll save a lot of money by shopping local at Weimer's Jewelry on Highway 64. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
Welcome back into Sports Time. Brian Landon with you this afternoon. No Brett, taking a couple days off, but he'll be back tomorrow afternoon. But joining us now, talk some wagering from OnlyPlayers.com out in Vegas. Doug Kazarian joins us now. Doug, thanks so much for joining us. A couple things I want to get to. I know we're going to get to some picks a little bit later, both college basketball and the NBA, but I want to start off, obviously, the NFL Scouting Combine going on right now. How much do you play the NFL draft, and how much do you pay attention to what's going on this week to kind of help you with some of those NFL draft bets?
Well, I'm big on the draft, and people might remember a few years ago I had a pretty big score on it, and last year I gave out 100-to-1 prop that hit as well.
Holy cow.
It's all about, it's funny, I was having a text conversation with a buddy of mine, and basically, I kind of giggle to myself that these math modelers think they can model draft betting and awards betting. You can't, because there's just such a human element to that. You can surely project tendencies, but it's just not as clean as they want it to be. But some of these guys have egos, if you will, and they see other people make money in the draft and awards market, so they think they can, but they don't realize their modeling is just pointless in this specific lane. And so it's an acquired taste, if you will, and it's an art. There's it's nuances. Every year is different. Because the front offices change.
Sure.
The insiders change. They burn bridges. The players change. And it's all case by case. People are trying to make a big deal of the Defensive Player of the Year stuff changing. It's last year, the previous year, dude, Wemby was going to be the Defensive Player of the Year this year if he didn't get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
For the first time ever, the defensive player of the year was going to come from a team that did not make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Okay, and a team that had a 19th net rating on defense, where it's only once in the last 20 years it's been out of the top 5. So for people to try to use model past performance and stuff like that, it's just comical to me.
Mm-hmm.
So in the draft, there's such a herd mentality when you have people involved. So whether it's the draft or awards betting, and then every year is different. Mac Jones did not win the Heisman because somebody was pushing Devontae Smith, and it just happened to be the year that people were sick of quarterbacks, even though his stats were off the chart and surpassed any other previous quarterback Heisman winner. There's so many other variables and moving parts. It's not something that you can really sort of model. You just have to have a good gut when it comes to this. And so I kind of sit back and watch the market move. And you guys can even look at a tweet last year this time. I doubled up on Jaden Daniels to the Commanders. And some guy tweeted me, he's like, why are you so confident? I go, because the other people who are not saying this are fake sharps.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it is. All these people saying, oh, no, like Drake May has a chance. Like, no, he had zero chance.
That's great. Well, speaking of the combine, kind of the big news is Abdul Carter and this stress reaction that he has. It sounds like now he's not going to need surgery. There was a lot of question about if he would need surgery last night. Sounds like he's not going to have surgery. What do you think about the defensive player from Penn State? And I know Landon on the other side, he wants the Titans to take him number 1. Where do you think a guy like that will go?
So I think Carter was trending towards number 1 before this injury stuff surfaced. And if teams are on the fence, like Tennessee, that could be a deciding factor. I'm not saying he can't go 1, but it could be a deciding factor if, in fact, Tennessee was on the fence. The problem with all of this, and these are just things to keep in mind, the closer we get to the draft, the better the sourced information is. So insiders. So Schefter is better close to the draft, but draft gurus like Kuiper know their stuff in advance. But what people have to remember when it comes to betting the draft is people tend to change their mind, and they're allowed to. So if a front office likes a certain player, and let's just say hypothetically Kuiper reports it, and then in a month another player is getting touted to go to that team, it doesn't mean Kuiper was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
He was just reporting what was the thought process at the time. So when you're betting futures in these types of markets, time is against you in certain ways. If you're betting a long shot or someone with long value, yes, time is against you. So I would only be making large plus money bets this time of year.
Yeah.
I would not be saying, like, so what if you miss a plus 140? Who cares?
Sure.
It's minus 150, right? Like last week, I was going to fire hard on Kate Cunningham at minus 140 to win most improved. I just didn't think Norm Powell had a chance, blah, blah, blah. Well, now Cunningham's minus 240. Okay. The award's not given out yet.
Right.
So hypothetically, I missed a minus 140 bet. And I thought it was like way undervalued. I thought it should have been minus $3. So it's still like bettable now in my eyes, but I'm still not going to do it. But those are the only times, like, okay, but if he was like 6-1 and you missed it, okay, don't sleep on those. So, like, I bet Trayvon Walker a few years ago this time of year at 20-1, and then I repopped it at 10-1 to be the number 1 pick because it was just trending that way. So these are just things you should only look at long shots this far out.
Yeah. I like that advice a lot. Let's get to college basketball. 2 new stories have come out in terms of college basketball teams being investigating for gambling-related issues. Fresno State announced over the weekend they held out 2 players for its game on Saturday after dismissing a player earlier in the year for similar reasons. And then yesterday we got the reports that New Orleans has held out 4 of its top 5 leading scorers since January. There's a story earlier this week in Sports Illustrated talking about the gambling ring allegedly allegedly linked to point shaving across both pro and college basketball. And one of the quotes really stood out to me. It said, if gamblers and game fixers were indeed at work at these schools, they preyed upon some of the least funded teams and athletic programs in Division I. You talk about those two schools, Fresno State, New Orleans, a team that you have mentioned a couple of times over the last couple of weeks, North Carolina A&T. I mean, those are teams that don't have a ton of funding in their athletic department and very little NIL funds. What do you make of all these stories and now two new teams kind of being a part of that?
It's a great question. It's a loaded question. I've been on Sloan Conference panels and stuff when I was at ESPN, and my bosses, or at least people at the company, would cringe, but I think it was factually correct. Point shaving probably occurs a few times a year. I said this back then, and I believed it. Much like insider trading occurs in Wall Street.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you shut down Wall Street. It means you increase oversight, you increase penalties and education, things like that.
Yeah.
So the question is now, in year 7 of legalization, are all these fact-finding or all these busted kids, are they new to the college basketball because of the betting legalization and, the prevalence of it in commercials and things like that, making kids more aware of that it exists and blah, blah, blah? Or are they only busting them now because of the oversight and regulation and the authorities are now monitoring this stuff more closely because it is legal?
Yeah. It's
a chicken and the egg, perhaps, but I'm of the belief on the latter, but I'm not completely myopic to think that it only exists, it always existed in the past. Sure. I do think, because I know what the illegal websites and markets used to have, I do think the college props are definitely new to the space. You could not bet Fresno State prop bets on rebounds back in the day, and 5-7 years ago, right?
Right.
So I do think that being added to the menu and convincing a kid who doesn't know better, hey, it's just your rebound total, you're not going to lose the game, I do think that's new. Now, I'm shocked that books take big. It's one thing to have props on the Final Four or, a Duke-Carolina game and having, the two leading scorers in their points props. I get it. That's fine. But I do think this might mark the end of some props. I just think the limit should be a lot lower, and I'm stunned. Because, that like the Jonte Porter stuff, even with the Toronto Raptors, guys on 10-day contracts, you should not be able to bet all that much. But, to each their own, and these are big companies and blah, blah, blah. But I do think that could be curbed a little bit and curtailed. I do think that would be a fair change. But, a New Orleans basketball program shaving points, this has been happening since I was in high school in the 90s, okay? Boston College, Arizona State, things like that. And then what happened is now you have more technology. You're monitoring, let's just hypothetically say DraftKings. DraftKings can track how many bets have come in on each team, right? We get the reports 80% of the handle. So if they're getting, the Central Michigan, Eastern Michigan game had 90% of money on one team's first half line, and they got steamed, well, they tell the authorities, and the authorities investigate. Think about it if it was not regulated. It would just be bookies in each city taking bets, and they would have no clue that there was all this action on Central Michigan -3 or whatever in the first half. So the fact that there is visibility and tracking and technology, and the gaming companies, the sportsbook operators are all on the same side as federal authorities, right? So they're all going to share that information. I mean, I'll just tell a story that the Arizona State scandal back in the day, by halftime, the ASU coach was told that his team was potentially shaving points because of some funny business going on in Vegas.
Oh, wow.
And so in the halftime locker room, he's like, guys, what the F is going on? And what happened was there was some college kids in the some sports book in Vegas. They were on spring break or something. They made a big bet against Arizona State. And because they weren't regular players there, a book operator called down the strip and was like, hey, did you guys get any unusual action on Arizona State game? They're like, yeah, funny. A bunch of kids came in. And so they all kind of communicate. Again, this is landlines, right?
Yeah.
This isn't even technology. and they figured it out by halftime. They got a message to the Arizona State Athletic Department. So they're all in cahoots, and not in a shady way, but like they all want stuff above board, right?
Of course.
Just like if there was a card counter, and not even a counter because that's legal, but like a guy marking cards at a book, like at a casino, they would tell other casinos, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the blackjack's still going to happen. If you wiped out casinos and riverboat gambling and all that, the blackjack's going to happen in underground clubs and stuff.
Sure.
And so at house games and things like that. So the next step, that's not going to be regulated. But if you have cameras and all these casinos, so I do think the more tracking and the more regulation is going to, and then I think the education is really important. Like we go back to the NFL issues, right? Some of those guys were placing wagers in the NFL facility, right? The Colts guys, they just didn't understand sort of the severity of the situation. They were kind of numb to it. So I do think there's, that some of them were guilty of being dumb and unaware and ignorant versus like trying to be super shady. But I do think the lower tier programs are more vulnerable, so to speak. But I do think it's an education thing. But I also think, you got to punish people, and then that'll get the message across.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a super fascinating topic with everything going on. Doug, real quickly before we run out of time, what do you like tonight in college basketball?
So Seattle is playing Cal Baptist. Cal Baptist is down their best scorer, and they played Grand Canyon. They were down 20 last week, and they came back because Grand Canyon scored 5 points the final 10.5 minutes. It was bizarre. Wow. But Grand Canyon was down like their top player. So Seattle's been steamed up from 3.5 to 5.5. I bought the half, so I'm -5, -20 on Seattle against Cal Baptist, and then I also like the under a little bit, but more on Seattle. I'm also on the under in the Rutgers-Michigan game, 154. And then Riverside late night, the old Hawaii bailout game, Riverside -1 at Hawaii.
I like it. Anything in the NBA?
Just props for me except for one. I like the Minnesota Timberwolves team total over 54.5 in the first half. I just think the Lakers are going to be super flat after that big win against the Mavericks.
Yeah.
They play small ball. They can score at will, so I don't want to take the Minnesota team side plus 2.5 or whatever it is. I'd rather just bank that they're going to score points. Now, Anthony Edwards is questionable, but even if he doesn't go, they go more small ball. That's how they came back against the Thunder the other night with guys like, Terrence Shannon and Dillingham. They're going to run. And this Lakers team, they're not going to be locking down on defense like they were against the Mavs. This is a team that will give up a lot of points, and 54.5 is not that much.
Yeah.
So I like the T-Wolves over 54.5. And in terms of prop bets, of all the ones, I'm just going to keep riding Jamal Murray over 2.5 threes. It's plus money. Guy's been unconscious the last 4 games. So I hope he lets it rip again tonight.
I like that. Doug, before we let you go, tell people more about how they can find you and get your plays over at onlyplayers.com.
I appreciate that. So at onlyplayers.com, we have an app as well, and we are offered a 50% discount to everyone in the Memphis area. The coupon code is Memphis. Very simple. Memphis, all caps. And it's 50% off. We obviously do my betting card, but we have videos every day that break down all my analysis. So what you're doing is paying for the leg. It's like the Cliff Notes of betting. We're giving you 60 to 90 seconds of video on every game, and I'm talking to all my sources out here, explaining the thought process, why the line's moving, and things along those lines. We also have free content for everyone there as well. But we want to be sort of a betting homepage to everyone. And, we realize the hours in the day, and people are busy with their lives, and it's hard to kind of track all these injuries, like I was mentioning about Minnesota and things like that. But it's nice to outsource a lot of that legwork, and that's what we're, our sort of business plan is centered on.
I love it. Everyone needs to go check out. And again, that promo code for 50% off Memphis, go use it over at onlyplayers.com. Doug, as always, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you again next week.
You got it, guys. Thanks so much, and good luck to everyone.
Thanks, Doug. Right back at you. Doug Kazarian joining us from onlyplayers.com out in Vegas. Again, go to onlyplayers.com. Get that 50% off using promo code Memphis and get all of his plays. Well, let's go ahead and get to another break, and when we return, it'll be time for Big Number of the Day.
Broadcasting from the Family Leisure Studio, we are Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
belong to you. Jenkins Floors in Little Rock, Cleveland, Mississippi, and now open in Horn Lake at 2356 West Goodman Road. Specializing in flooring and carpeting, tile, plantation shutters, and blinds, Jenkins makes your life easy with a 2-week turnaround. Contractors, builders, or family projects, call 662-469-9350 for a free estimate. Owners Timmy and Rebecca Jenkins say hello to Sports 56 fans and look forward to your business.
Our daughter Jessie loves playing detective.
A clue.
But since we discovered she has sensitive skin, we've been playing detective too.
We thought the problem was our puppy.
But it was actually our old detergent.
Aha.
So we switched to Tide Free and Gentle. Tide Free and Gentle provides an excellent Tide clean, and it doesn't leave behind irritating residues like dyes or perfume. It's gentle on your skin.
Case closed.
If it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide Free and Gentle.
All 650 acquisition fee, 20,000 miles per year, 20 cents excess mileage paid for. SEO 233118, MSRP 25320. Telluride SG 596,204, MSRP 41,060. Sportage S719 2005, MSRP 30,660. Includes all rebates and incentives. Must finance through KFA. Excludes top final license 895 PF with approved credit. Dealer stock only. See dealer for complete details. Offer valid through 3/2/2025.
It's the Kia President's Day sales event on now at Gossett Kia South Mount Moriah. Hey, what's up, Jeff Allen?
Randy, I've got a 2025 Kia K4 LXS for less than $5 a day at $159 a month with class-leading torque and fuel efficiency. 2025 Kia Telluride has front-wheel drive with more power, larger cargo area, and more ground clearance than a Nissan Pathfinder. $398 a month. Plus a 2025 Sportage EX, better overall customer rating than a Toyota RAV4 and longer warranty per Edmunds.com at $279 a month.
All $49.99 to a signing, 24 month lease. Plus, get a 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain limited warranty.
So whether you live in Horn Lake, South Haven, Olive Branch, or Memphis, you'll be happy at Gossett Kia on Mount Moriah.
Sportstime on Sports 56 and 95 once again. Brett Rosalie and Ryan Davis.
Big Daddy.
Hello, Big Brand. It's a guy, he wants to be big, then he gets big, he doesn't want to be big anymore, then he gets small, but the suit's too big.
Big Daddy.
The big boy.
You're a big guy. I think she's trying to pull a fast one on Big Daddy.
The big number of the day.
All right, Landon, I have two big numbers today, but they're both pretty quick. They're both pretty short, so I'm going to use both of them instead of saving one. My first one is the number 25. We talked earlier about Otega Owe, Kentucky's one of Kentucky's better players. He had a great night last night against Oklahoma. Finished with 28 points, 6 rebounds. Just super electric. Huge for Kentucky getting that 1-point win over Oklahoma. Now, this number is going to be like the most today-aged college basketball big number you've ever heard because it has to do with the transfer portal. Otega Owe, you might not know this about him, he played at Oklahoma last year, the team he just beat and put 25 on last night. Otega Owe is the only Division I player this century to score 25 or more points in a road win against a team he played for the previous season. Obviously, for a while, that couldn't happen because you had to, sit out for a year. Otega Owe, 28 points last night was huge. Was letting his previous fans have it after the game. He was electric in that game. My other big number is the number 3. Look out for BYU. They're playing really well right now. In each of their last 3 games, BYU has scored at least 90 points, shot at least 50% from the field, made at least a dozen three-pointers, and had fewer than a dozen turnovers. No other Division I team this century has done that 3 games in a row. So you got to give a lot of credit to Kevin Young, new BYU head coach, came to BYU after being an assistant in the NBA, kind of building this structure and building this team up. It's had its ups and downs this season, but it really feels like they're clicking. You look right now, Shelby Mast, his bracket over at bracketwag.com that he updates daily, He has BYU this morning on the 7 line. So, they're 7. They continue to play like this. Maybe they make a run in their conference tournament. That's a team that you could be talking about 6, 7, maybe even a 5 seed that, could make a run in March. It's certainly a team that I wouldn't want to face.
Yeah, for sure. Well, my big number is, it is a big number today.
Okay.
It is 1 million.
Whoa.
1 million
That is a big
on
number.
the dot. Earlier today, some news was released about the future of the Tennessee Volunteers in football playing a home game against the Nebraska Cornhuskers. So the news came out that Nebraska football has withdrawn from the 2026-2027 football series with Tennessee football, and it left the Vols frustrated.
Wow.
Nebraska's decision to cancel its scheduled football series with Tennessee in 26 and 27 has disappointed many, and the reason for it is because the Cornhuskers' city renovations to Memorial Stadium in 2027 is going to have an impact on the capacity of seating, which is then going to impact the revenue flow. So to offset this, they plan to add an 8th home game that year, replacing Tennessee with Bowling Green. Great replacement. Not
I'm
really.
sure the fans thrilled about that one.
Absolutely. So athletic director Troy Dannon emphasized the financial benefits of an extra home game during the season and the stadium renovations, while Tennessee's athletic director, Danny White, expressed frustration over the cancellation, highlighting that the series had been put in place for years, and he criticized the $500,000 buyout clause, which he felt was insufficient, mind you, to prevent such decisions, while also he pointed out that the contract, which dates back 20 years, may need more substantial penalties to avoid future cancellations. Now, where does $1 million come in and all that? Nebraska will be fined $1 million for canceling this series with the Tennessee Volunteers, which I also love to hear stories like this because it goes a little bit into the backstory of just how far in the future college football and college sports in general are already planning their steps out. Of like a Jalen Milroe going to Alabama. That wasn't just a, hey, I'm going to look at you this year and pluck you out of nowhere. Like, these people have been planning this stuff. So a late cancellation like this, and yes, even though this is still not something that's going to happen it's not going to happen now, but something that was planned a year or two in advance is still considered to be a late cancellation when you're talking in the time frame of sports. So
Sure.
I feel for the Tennessee Volunteers, though I grew up not being a fan of them. I feel for them. I know it's very frustrating to have something like that set in stone, and just because it's it comes down to a money issue, but still, Nebraska's going to be paying the price for it. A $1 million fine for canceling this series.
Yeah, it feels like we're seeing a lot more, of these series coming, getting canceled before they even start. I know, what was it, last year, Ole Miss, they're at, Wake Forest, and, while they're there, Wake Forest informs them that they are going to cancel the series after that game is played. And then I think another one like USC Ole Miss series canceled that was on the table. This one obviously different because it has a lot to do with stadium and different things. But it is interesting to see because you get series out that are set 10 years in advance. And so it's forget about it. I think Memphis has like Purdue on the schedule in like the 2028 and 2030 season or something like that. And that was set like back in 2018. It's just crazy how far in advance we set these schedules. So it doesn't surprise me that we get some of these series canceled before they even happen. But it is awfully strange. Well, before we get to a break and wrap up this hour, it's getting close to dinner hour, almost 5 o'clock. Maybe you're thinking about what to get tonight or maybe even for this weekend. When you think of Memphis food, you got to think of barbecue. And you can get the world-famous Memphis-style barbecue any night at the commissary. With locations in Germantown and Collierville, stop in for lunch, dinner, or get it to go. Start your meal with an appetizer like the cheese plate, chicken wings, or my favorite, the barbecue nachos. For more than 40 years, the commissary has been a staple in this area. Big reason is because of the quality of food they serve. My go-to, it's got to be the ribs, but it's hard to resist the barbecue shoulder. Get it chopped or pulled, and get it by the plate or by the pound. Comes in handy with their sandwich packs. Feed the whole group with a 6-pack, 8-pack, even a 12-pack. Don't forget about the dessert like the delicious banana pudding, brownie, or the lemon icebox pie. Check out the entire menu and catering options at commissarybbq.com. Whether it's a watch party for your favorite team with all the college basketball tourney time just around the corner, maybe you want to have a party to watch your favorite team, or maybe the weather getting nice, maybe have a party outside. Let the commissary cater your next event. Give them a call at 901-754-5540. That's 901-754-5540 and make any event perfect. Stop in today at either location. In Germantown, open until 8 p.m. and in Collierville, open daily till 9 p.m. for that world-famous Memphis-style barbecue at the commissary. Let's get to another break, and when we return to start our third and final hour, we're getting back into the Tiger conversation because we're talking Tigers with Greg Gaston.
It's the Sheldon Rosenberg Ashley Shell Run with Mark Mansfield Realtors. I am so proud and feel so honored when the real estate agents contact me when they want to sell their homes. They know that I've been in the business for quite a while, have a great deal of experience, and know that I am good at marketing, not merely putting a sign in the yard and looking at sales. Over the years, I have developed a highly successful strategic marketing program that can mean the difference in what you make and win. Talk to 2 to 3 real estate brokers, but make sure that I am one of them. So if you or somebody you know is thinking about selling a home, remember what other real estate agents have been in the business do. Then call me, Sheldon Rosenberg, at 483-0546, or email me at memphisrelocate.com. I will wait to hear from you to take advantage of this good market. That's 483-0546 or memphisrelocate.com. Thank you.
Bobby J says get to the Gossett Kia President's Day sales event today at Gossett Kia on the Pike. You'll find 2025 Kia K4 LXS for less than $5 a day at $159 a month with class-leading torque and fuel efficiency. 2025 Kia Telluride S with more power, larger cargo bed area, and more ground clearance than Nissan Pathfinder $398 a month. 2025 Sportage EX, better overall consumer rating than Toyota RAV4, longer warranty for Evans.com at $279 a month. All with $49.99 due at signing. Plus Kia's 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain limited warranty. Call Bobby J. He'll put you in a new Kia today. Gossett Kia, 1900 Covington Pike. Online, KiaCovingtonPike.com.
If you want it, we got it at Gossett Motor Cars.
$20,000 miles per year, 20 cents excess mileage. K4, SEO 233118, MSRP 25320. Telluride SG 59604, MSRP 41060. Sportage S719 2005, MSRP 30660. Includes all rebates and incentives. Must finance through KFA. Excludes tax filing license 895 PF with approved credit. Dealer stock only. See for complete details. Offer valid through 3/2/2025.
It's inevitable. Rain, snow, and ice are coming, and they'll make driving a challenge. Thankfully, the experts at Tire Rack know a thing or two about conquering winter's worst. New tires elevate traction and braking, and they'll keep you safe. Tire Rack sells only the best, like the full line of Falcon tires. Go to TireRack.com/Colin, build a tire and wheel package for DIY installation. Ship fast and free, and backed by 2 years of free road hazard protection. TireRack.com, the way tire buying should be.
Step up your wings game at East Coast Wings and Grill. With 60 wing flavors and 7 heat indexes, do you have what it takes to turn the heat on your wings up to insanity? East Coast Wings and Grill is family friendly with a large variety menu to satisfy the whole bunch. Sign up today for their loyalty program and chase the rewards. For every dollar you spend, you collect a point. Earn 100 points and receive a $5 reward. Next to Lowe's on Highway 64 in Marlin, come try America's best wings at East Coast Wings and Grill. Sports 56 traffic.
Help trucks assisting with a couple of earlier accidents. Here's what we're seeing. Heavier traffic just in the last few minutes. 55 over here at Mallory. It's moving through the construction between Macklemore and South Parkway on 55. As you head south of town on 55 down through DeSoto County, that seems to have picked up quite a bit. Hey, if your lawn needs some help this time of the year, you're not alone. Lawn Solutions can help with over 30 years experience. Call Lawn Solutions 867-5626. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
the Family Leisure Studios. We are Sports 56, WHBQ Memphis, and W253DF Memphis. Now, back to Sports Time on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. This hour brought to you by Jaguar Land Rover Biloxi. Once again,
You say you stand by your man. Tell me something I don't understand.
Welcome back into Sports Time. Bryant and Landon with you. No Brett this afternoon, taking a couple days off. He'll be back tomorrow afternoon, but as we start our third and final hour of today's show, we got to talk Tigers, and we do it every Thursday afternoon with Greg Gaston.
from the Tigers sideline, it's Tigers Talk with Memphis broadcasting legend Greg Gaston. Here, Greg, Monday mornings on Sports 56 mornings, along with Nye Savoy from 7 to 10, right here on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. On Twitter at Greg_Gaston. Here's Greg with Bryant and Brett.
Greg Gaston joins us every Thursday afternoon. Make sure you tune in every morning to hear him on Sports 56 Mornings with Greg and Eli daily from 7 to 10. He was also on the call last night for Memphis versus Rice alongside Trey Draper. Greg, it was a 12-point game that for the last probably 13 minutes out of the 20 minutes of the second half was way too close for comfort. What were your takeaways from last night's win for the Tigers?
Hey, Brian, good afternoon. Look, it was at times close. Never felt like Memphis was going to lose that basketball game. It's a little different perspective for me because I'm broadcasting it, so I'm in the moment. But you just never thought that they were in trouble. You give a lot of credit to Rice. They fought hard. Rice fought hard. They have fought hard just about every single game in conference this year. They've had some games go right down to the wire, including that first game they played against Memphis on February 2nd. They lost by one possession in that one, 86-83. They lost to UAB recently by, I think, a couple of points. So they've been in battles. They just don't have closers. They have players that play hard. They have a coach that really can coach. They just don't have closers. And Memphis has closers. And you saw what happened when Memphis turned it on with the game tied 70-70. They just turned on a switch, and it was a 14-2 run to end it. So, Memphis did a good job. I thought they played very well in many aspects. They rebounded the ball incredibly well. They did a really good job getting to the hole, getting to the free throw line, scoring in the paint. They didn't shoot the ball from the outside well, which is a rarity this year, but it shows you that even if they don't have their arsenal of outside shots, that they still can beat you. So it was a good win. Plus, it was a tweener game. Always a concern when you're going from a big game against Florida Atlantic, and it was big because you were coming off the Wichita State loss, so you expected them to be focused and ready to go, and they were. And then you have the UAB game on Sunday in Birmingham, which is going to be a war at Bartow Arena. You got that Little Rice game right there in the middle. So it's understandable if guys look ahead, but it didn't look like they did. I think they were focused. You saw the start they got out to. So I think it was a good, solid win for them.
Yeah, and you mentioned that switch, flipping the switch over that last 2 or 3 minutes of the game, and that switch was Dane Danger, what he did at the end of that game last night, doing a little bit of everything, scoring the ball, grabbing massive rebounds, had a nice assist to PJ Haggerty, blocking shots. I mean, anything you could have possibly wanted Dane Danger to do in those final 2 minutes, he was doing. A career-high 25 points for him. What did you see from the big man last night? And Nicholas Jourdain was fantastic right next to him.
Yeah, both those guys really had special games. Remember, Danger was off to a quick start. He had 7 early for Memphis, and then he got 2 fouls, and he was on the bench the rest of the first half. So you didn't see him, and who knows how many points he would have went for if he had the minutes that he would normally have in a game if it weren't for the foul problems, because they couldn't stop him. He's just incredible with the moves that he has inside the paint. That first step is so fast. Spin moves, finishes with the left or the right hand. Rice didn't have an answer for that guy. And then, as we talked about, 70-70, he just took over that game in every aspect. 3 blocks in the last 2 minutes. He had 2 on the one sequence. I just think he was absolutely terrific, and he really has been for the most part. Once Penny reinserted him into the starting lineup, he has taken off with it, and his numbers reflect that. I think Danger should be a first-team all-conference performer. Now the question is, will he be eliminated by his fellow teammates? Are people who vote afraid to put too many Tigers in? What about the fact that he's a big, and you got Yaxel, who's a big as well? I wonder how that'll all shape out. But he belongs as a first-team all-conference player, and we saw that last night. We saw how he could take over a game. And that's the really good thing about Memphis. One of the good things is that they have really three players that could take over a game at any time, but especially Danger and Haggerty, but certainly Hunter as well. And then Jourdain was fabulous. Let's give it up for Nicholas Jourdain. Yeah. The hustle we saw, the offensive rebounds, the putbacks, the shots that he made. He knocked down a three. I think he was really, really special last night. One of his probably top two games of the year. That was one of them. So those two bigs really helped. And, Haggerty did his thing. I know there was at times the frustration on PJ's face. He got the technical foul because he wasn't getting the calls. And Hunter didn't have a big offensive game. So those bigs needed to come up big, and they did.
They sure did. You mentioned Haggerty and the frustration last night. It's been a talking point pretty much all day, anywhere you look, about the officiating last night, specifically with PJ Haggerty. I was not surprised at all when he got the tee. I was at the game with some of my buddies, and you'd seen early there were a couple times where he came down from a shot attempt and he looked over at the ref and might have said something, and then when he came down, the moment I saw his arms go up, I said, all right, here it comes, and he got the tee. So I was not surprised there. But what did you think of the officiating last night from the game as a whole, and then this conversation that PJ Haggerty, it's a fact, is not getting to the line as much in conference play than he was non-conference, and even last year when he was second in the country and getting to the line?
Right. First of all, let me say, and I think people would agree, that he deserved the technical foul. You can't show up an official. You can't do what he did. It was very reminiscent of what's been happening with John Morant. It's amazing. They mirror each other as far as every single play. And there are a lot of plays when both those guys are fouled and they don't get the call. They don't get the benefit. So he did deserve the technical, but he also deserved to get a better whistle. And he finally was able to get to the foul line a little bit more in the second half. But this is a veteran crew. Pat Adams, usually Pat Adams games go really long.
They do.
There's a lot of whistles. There's a lot of fouls. I was, again, I'm in the moment because I'm calling the game, but I thought there were a few fouls that were called that were touch fouls, and then there was a mugging going on, and they didn't call the foul. I don't know what it is. Look, there's not a conspiracy.
No.
All the officials didn't get together and say, hey, now that we do if we do an American Conference game and Memphis happens to be playing, let's make sure we don't give Haggerty the whistle. I mean, that's not going on. And he hasn't pulled back from what he does. He's still going to the hole. He's still getting contact. It's just for whatever reason, he's not getting the whistle. People say, well, maybe because they think he's flopping and all that. Look, I don't believe so. You don't see him flipping and flopping on the ground all the time. Once in a while he may exaggerate it a bit, but for the most part, he's getting hit. The question is, with a particular officiating crew, are they going to let the teams battle? Are they going to allow physicality? Because there is a lot of physical play that they're going to let go. And you don't want to blow the whistle every single time. But, yeah, there were some whistles that I go, wow, that seemed like a touch foul, and others where certainly, in his case, he was banged around. So I don't know why there is a big difference between earlier in the season, non-conference, and now, but the facts are the facts, and he's getting to the free throw line a lot less in conference play.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think certainly no conspiracy theory there. I mean, I thought you could see a lot of what you were just saying, kind of touch calls on both sides last night for both Memphis and Rice, and I thought there were some missed calls on both sides for both Memphis and Rice. But I know Dave said it earlier today. I've heard a couple of other people bring this up. Not as much of a conspiracy theory against Memphis versus everyone and the refs are out to get Memphis, but maybe the idea of not saying, hey, don't call these fouls, but when it comes to PJ Haggerty, maybe somebody telling these officials, maybe as a whole in the American, not in the American, but these officials that are doing Memphis games, of sometimes, he throws his head back, sometimes he's trying to draw a foul, which he's very good at, and maybe look closer when you're calling that, and maybe that's causing some of these refs to swallow the whistle. I don't know, because you're right. I mean, it's the truth. He is not getting to the line nearly as much as he was getting 2 months ago in non-conference play.
Yeah, that may very well be the situation, may very well be the case. These are human beings, these officials, so they know what teams are playing. They know what flight they're on to go to what city to go referee what game. They know what teams are playing. They know about these teams. Believe me, they don't go in blindfolded. They know what's happening. They know if this team gets normally to the free throw line a lot and this team doesn't. I'm not saying that decides how they're going to call a game,
right.
But again, they're human, so it's in the back of their mind. If a player is notorious, and I'm not saying PJ, but if a player is notorious for exaggerating calls, then they know that. Believe me, they know that. And again, it's just human nature that you may call a game a particular way. But I still go back to whether that crew is going to call the game close or not. And I don't mind if a game is called close. I don't mind if a game is called loose, as long as there's consistency and as long as it's for both teams. I thought last night, again, that there were some calls in the first half that were just not fouls.
Sure.
They were barely touched, and other times guys were getting mowed over, and they weren't called, and there was just a ton of free throw shot. And then in the second half, it was a while before we got to the bonus. I mean, we were in the double bonus for both teams pretty early in the first half. So, and again, at halftime, those officials go back, they grab something to drink, they probably use the facilities, and they look at a stat sheet.
That's right.
There's no question that they do. And I'm not saying, again, if one team got 25 foul calls and the other one got 3, that they completely adjust and go in favor of the other team. But they notice that. They want to see consistency as well.
Absolutely.
So, so it's tricky. And I know, look, Penny's not happy, and believe me, his word is out there. Whether that makes a difference or not, we'll see. And again, second half, Haggerty got to the free throw line a lot more.
Yeah, he sure did. Yeah, 47 combined free throws last night in that game.
I know. I called him.
40 combined fouls. You sure did. It was a long game. That's for sure. Going back to Dane Danger for a minute. Earlier this week on the Penny Hardaway radio show, Dane was the player guest, and he made a comment about having another year of eligibility. Jason Munns, I'm sure others have written about the fact that looking at everything, he would have to try to get another year from the NCAA. And that it would be unlikely he would get an extra year. Last night, he was asked about it post-game and said that he's still looking into things about his time at Baylor. What do you make of this whole situation?
Well, Memphis has a great track record with the NCAA.
Oh, yeah.
So, certainly
Fantastic.
appeal, and he'll get a favorable ruling.
That's
There's
right.
no question about it. But if I'm Dane, sure, I'm looking at every avenue. I know what the issue is and where the discrepancy is. He played the one season, 3 games, and you have to be, or he didn't even play, whatever it was, but you have to be playing for a team to get that redshirt year during COVID. You had to have been playing. You couldn't have been out. So it's a little complicated. I've had people explain it to me, and I'm not going to sit here and try to explain it, but I could see where he was a little confused or misled. But to me, as Jason has written about Parthu Pajai as well, they're on top of it, and more than likely it's not going to happen. But I'm not going to shut the door on it, only because in this craziness that we call collegiate sports anymore, expect the unexpected.
Sure.
There are players that are playing. I'm like, what? They have another year? Wait, isn't that the 10th year for them at the particular school? It's nuts. It's nuts. Everybody else knows it's nuts. So it wouldn't shock me if somehow, like we had the whole thing with the junior college, right? With the quarterback Pavia from Vanderbilt, and he got his year. And then Anthony Lanphier, the tight end for Memphis football, who was first thought he had eligibility was used up. So he went ahead and he put his name in for the NFL draft. Then he realizes, oh, wait, I played junior college. I should get that year. And then he's back, and he's going to play for Memphis for another year. And then they say, no, it's not for you. It doesn't work for you. Pavia's okay. It doesn't work for you for whatever reason. And now he's back again hoping to make it in the NFL, at least get an opportunity, a shot at it. So that's how crazy it is, how complicated it is. So right now I would say no for Dane Danger to have another year. But why not exhaust all possibilities to see if he can get that year, right?
Yeah, why not? And, I mean, the small chance that he could, that would be a great way to start your offseason if you could get Dane another year, convince PJ to come back another year. That'd be a nice way to start the offseason trying to build next year's team. I want to talk about the Combine here in a second. A couple Tigers participating in that this week. But last thing, Tiger basketball, Dink Yates last night. I guess we should really go back to the game over the weekend. He gets in against FAU, first meaningful minutes since Arkansas State, plays really well, comes out last night, gives them some good minutes. I thought second half defensively kind of got put in bad situations. Guy bringing the ball up the court is his guy to guard. He takes him to the rack a couple times. Penny takes him out. What have you made of this story? Dink Yates, who joined the team as a walk-on, has now, according to Penny Hardaway, been put on scholarship, and now it feels like Penny Hardaway comfortable walking down the bench and putting him in the game.
Nice to see. He's a local product, area product, and to get his opportunity and the limited minutes that he's had, he's actually produced.
Yeah.
He is, I think, offensively, he is, without question, a solid D1 player. Defensively, he's not. He can rebound the basketball. He has jumping ability, has some good leaping ability, but he's got to play better man-to-man defense. And there was a play, and you probably saw it, Brian. I think I'm trying to remember when it happened here, but he got pulled. He got pulled because he wasn't able to stay in front of his man. He blew right by him and scored.
Yeah.
So these are things he's got to get better at, and he's learning, and he's, I'm sure, working hard at it. But I mean, that was a nice lift. He comes in the game, he gets a couple of dunks, he has 6 quick points.
Yeah.
And again, when he's, we don't see as many local products on Memphis Tigers roster, on the basketball roster. We do on the football, but on the basketball roster as we used to see. So when you have a player from the region, it's nice to see them get that opportunity. So I'm very happy for Dick.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking to Greg Gaston, he joins us every single week to talk Tigers. Over to the football side, the Combine going on this week. Seth Hennigan, Rock Taylor, both going to be participating, representing the Tigers. What do you want to see from both those guys this week? And just getting a couple Tigers back into the Combine, really cool to see.
Yeah, I want to see Hennigan with the accuracy that we've seen pretty much through his entire Memphis career, because the way he's going to sell himself to an NFL team, whether he gets drafted or not, is I'm an incredibly intelligent quarterback, which he is. Nobody's denying that. I have pinpoint accuracy, and I can make all the throws. He doesn't have a gun. He doesn't have this huge arm. That's a little bit of a detriment. He doesn't have that breakaway ability. He's elusive, don't get me wrong. He can come out of the pocket and make a play or two.
Yeah.
But this isn't the modern NFL quarterback, right? The quarterbacks we're looking at, the Lamar Jacksons, the Josh Allens, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, all these guys can take off and run and crush you with their legs, and that's not Hennigan. So, but he's kind of a tweener. He's not the just strictly pocket passer, but he's also not this two-way guy that can really run and put up 100 yards in a game, like it seems like a lot of quarterbacks can. And he doesn't have that. He doesn't have like the Matthew Stafford arm, so he can't just sit back there and pick apart different teams. But he's such a he's a winner. He's an intelligent guy. He's got a good arm, and he's got pinpoint accuracy, and that's what he has to do. All he needs to do is wow over some team, maybe get drafted late, stick with the roster. I think he has a really good chance to get drafted late, and if not, as an undrafted free agent, stick with the team. Yeah. Rock Taylor, I mean, to get the invite, that's incredible. Rock Taylor and I had Tim Cramsey on the other day, the offensive coordinator, on my show, and he talked about, I said, it was a slow start for Rock, and then he picked it up, and he said, you got to remember, he was double-teamed. Like, all the time he was double-teamed. And it was frustrating for him, and it's very tough to be able to produce. And then he started to figure it out. And he's got the physical attributes. He has the attributes to be an NFL wide receiver. He's got pretty good speed. I mean, he's not the cheetah. He's not any of those guys with Hill or even Calvin Austin. But he has some pretty good speed. But he has physicality to go over the middle, to be a possession type receiver and still make a play down the field. So, this is his opportunity, since he didn't participate in the Senior Bowl, to really go ahead and wow some NFL teams with what he can do physically. And, of course, these guys have to do really well with their interviews and things of that nature. But I'm very happy for both of them to get that opportunity.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun watching both those guys on Saturday. Greg, as always, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll do it again next week.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Greg. Greg Gaston joining us every single Thursday afternoon to talk Tigers. Make sure you listen to him every single morning, Sports 56 Mornings with Greg and Eli, 7 to 10. Also, you can catch him on ESPN Plus with the Tiger broadcasts. Saturday's going to be really fun watching both those guys, Seth Hennigan and Rock Taylor, getting this opportunity in front of all the scouts. I think both those guys, great opportunity, especially Seth Hennigan, what he did at the Senior Bowl, making headlines, and then now what he can do at the Scouting Combine. Get drafted late, maybe, if he isn't drafted, a guy that can sign as an undrafted free agent and stick with a team. And you think maybe getting picked up late in the draft, you're going to a situation where maybe you can sit for a couple of years and really learn behind a veteran quarterback and develop in that system and ultimately, maybe be that guy. So it'll be really fun to watch over this weekend. Well, we're going to talk a lot more about the NFL draft and the Scouting Combine in our next segment during What's Trending. Before we do that, let me remind you about Jaguar Land Rover Bluff City. Jaguar Bluff City, they've been the premier Jaguar dealership for the greater Memphis area since 1984, and their talented team is ready to help you find your next perfect vehicle at unbeatable rates. Swing by Jaguar Land Rover Bluff City today and check out the new 2025 models like the 2025 Range Rover Sport, 2025 Range Rover Velar, and the 2025 Defender. Test drive the Range Rover Sport, where luxury meets performance. It's a perfect mix of style, performance, and versatility, with options ranging from 360 horsepower up to 635. It's also available as a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle with $7,500 federal tax credit when leased with approved credit. Take a look at the Range Rover Velar, powered by mild hybrid technology and enhanced with the latest well-being features and fully connected entertainment system. The Range Rover Velar is the ultimate luxury compact crossover. Purchase yours today and get special 4.4% for 72 months financing available with approved credit. Don't forget about the Defender. Available in multiple models to fit your needs, the Defender is built for the modern explorer, and Jaguar Bluff City is offering special interest rates for 60 and 72 months on various models. Give them a call, 877-259-6169. Go online to jaguarbluffcity.com, but head out there, test drive these beautiful vehicles. 6335 Wheel Cove, just off of Quince, for Bluff City Jaguar. Well, let's get to another break, and when we return, we'll talk about what's trending.
Spring yet, but it's close, and right now, it's the perfect time to start thinking and planning for your backyard entertainment. Just so happens Family Leisure is thinking that way too, with their preseason pool and patio sale. Get 2024 pricing on all above-ground pools and patio furniture. Also, secure your spot for pool installation. That way, you can go ahead and start making plans. Lots of new inventory is in roof, so in-stock patio furniture is up to 70% off. You want a play gym, a trampoline, how about an outdoor kitchen to go along with that new pool? They're all on sale too. You can get spas up to $3,000 off and save even more by mentioning this ad. You do that, you'll get a $250 gift card with a pool, spa, or patio furniture purchase. Winter won't last forever. The spring will be here soon.
It feels like everyone is talking about how the American dream of homeownership has become out of reach for so many of us. Well, Rocket is trying to give us more of a chance to own our homes. They're making homeownership simpler and more accessible to more people, turning renters into owners. Rocket believes that every one of us deserves a shot at the American dream. So, are you ready? Own the dream. Visit rocket.com or call 800-4ROCKET.
Drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds. With that kind of money, for speedy security. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates not available in all states. Potential savings will vary.
All 650 acquisition fee, 20,000 miles per year, 20 cents excess mileage. K4, SEO 233118, MSRP 25320. Telluride SG 596,204, MSRP 41160. Sportage S719 2005, MSRP 30660. Includes all rebates and incentives. Must finance through KFA. Excludes tax final license 895 PF with approved credit. Dealer stock only. See dealer for complete details. Offer valid through 3/2/2025.
It's the Kia President's Day sales event on now at Gossett Kia Southbound Mariah. Hey, what's up, Jeff Allen?
Randy, I've got a 2025 Kia K4 LXS for less than $5 a day at $159 a month with class-leading torque and fuel efficiency. 2025 Kia Telluride S front-wheel drive with more power, larger cargo area, and more ground clearance than a Nissan Pathfinder. $398 a month. Plus a 2025 Sportage EX, better overall customer rating than a Toyota RAV4 and longer warranty per Edmunds.com at $279 a month.
All $49.99 to signing 24 month lease. Plus, get a 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain limited warranty.
So whether you live in Horn Lake, South Haven, Olive Branch, or Memphis, you'll be happy at Gossett Kia on Mount Moriah.
Tiger Nation, Memphis women's basketball is back in action at the El Marone Fieldhouse Saturday, March 1st at 2 o'clock when the Tigers welcome the Tulsa Golden Hurricane to the 901. Prior to the game, we will honor our senior class, and at halftime, we will recognize the legendary career of Tamika Whitmore by retiring her jersey. It's time to stand up, Memphis, and cheer on your Tigers in their final home game of the season. Be sure to get your tickets now at GoTigersGo.com.
Hey, Marty, that makes something always happening over here at Gossett Volkswagen Germantown. So what's happening right now?
The 2025 Jetta S is what's happening, Randy. You buy Jetta S for $20,499.
That's awesome. What else is happening?
2024 Taos SE, $249 a month or $28,616. Or front and rear headroom and longer warranty than Crosstrek or TX30.
Tell me more, Marty.
2024 Tiguan S, more cargo space, torque, and warranty than Escape or RAV4 at a lower price, $279 a month.
Plus 2024 Atlas SEL Peak Editions, 5,000 off MSRP. So get to Gossett Volkswagen Germantown, 7420 Winchester Road. Shop online, GossettVWG.com. Ask for Marty McMahon.
Remember, the future is what you make it.
This traffic brought to you by Brinson Tax Service. They protect you like family.
Sports 56 traffic.
Good afternoon. MPD is working with a couple of accidents. It's building through Midtown, just in a couple of spots. I-40 over here at Chelsea. 40 West seems to have picked up here at Danny Thomas, headed across the I-40 bridge over into West Memphis. If your lawn needs some help this time of the year, call Lawn Solutions at 867-5626. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
Welcome back into Sports Time. Bryant Landon with you as we got a little less than 30 minutes left in today's show. Want to talk some stories coming out of the NFL. We'll start with the big story out of the scouting combine. It has to do with the potential number 1 overall pick, Abdul Carter. This was put out by Adam Schefter last night. Late last night, quote, test today revealed that potential number 1 pick Abdul Carter has a stress reaction in his right foot, and the Penn State standout will need to decide soon whether to have surgery, sources told ESPN. Quote, there are mixed opinions on whether he needs surgery, and we will figure it out in the near future, Carter's agent Drew Rosenhaus said Wednesday night in Indy. Rosenhaus, I should say. Then today, Adam Schefter reported that, quote, doctors told Penn State defensive end and projected number 1 pick Abdul Carter that after further scans of his right foot, surgery is not advisable. Carter will work out at his March 28th pro day at Penn State. I should say this is not the same injury that he dealt with this season at Penn State. That was a shoulder injury. This is a foot injury. So, Landon, you're the man with the number 1 pick. Right now, they just put up Mel Kiper's NFL Mock Draft 2.0. Abdul Carter, number 1 to Tennessee. Cam Ward, 2 to Cleveland. Travis Hunter, 3 to New York. And then it went off screen, so I just saw the first 3 picks. Abdul Carter, does this worry you, scare you, anything about, because I know this is the guy you want your Titans to take in the upcoming draft.
Yeah, I for sure do, and I don't think this worries me or is not bothersome at all. It actually reminds me of a few years back when somebody else went through something similar. Happens to just be the name of Julio Jones, and he did not get surgery, let it heal, and actually performed very well in that offseason. The Falcons ended up trading up to get Julio Jones, and now he has gone down as one of the greatest wide receivers to ever do it in the NFL. So an injury like this, or whatever it is, this is like stress fracture, whatever it is, doesn't bother me at all. I think whether he decide, like I said earlier in my not top story, it's a thing where if he does decide to go through surgery, even though it has been advised by doctors not to do so, he's only out for 8 weeks. And sure, after that's done, he'll have a little bit more time to recover, to get back to full strength. I believe he said in a report earlier, whether it was today or yesterday, that he feels like he's already at 90% of his strength, that is, of his health. I mean, that's really, really good. So I think if he takes the route, which I believe he should take the route, of letting it heal just naturally and just fighting through it, continuing to compete at his pro day, which they're expecting a big day out of him. I mean, how could you not? The dude just ran all over the Big Ten, led every single category that could be had for a defensive end rusher like himself. I don't find any of this worrisome, and I know there's a lot of things still up in the air. Like I mentioned earlier, it's still very early in the offseason. We still have a whole combine to go through before we even get to
pro days coming.
Yeah,
a lot still to do.
A lot of things are still happening, and that's if the Titans even keep the number 1 pick. There's been a lot of talks about them trading back and wanting to do different things. I know a lot of people, like, if we were to take a quarterback, want to go the route of Cam Ward. Not taking anything away from Cam Ward, great athlete, did spectacular in college, one of the best to ever do it. But I just don't think the fit for us right now, for the Titans, is a quarterback. Well, we need one, but not Shedeur, not Cam Ward. I just don't feel they would. I just don't feel they would fit in with what the Titans are trying to do. And like Brian Callahan said, which I think is going to give us a lot of insight into how the Titans react, is they want these long-term solutions. They don't want the one-hit wonders. They don't want something that's going to sit there and be the solution for a year and then, okay, there they go. They're gone again. So I don't know if that means we're going to be, I think that points towards we're not going to be going after a one-year deal with a quarterback. I think what we want is somebody who's going to be with the system for a while, who's going to be with us for a while, who's going to learn under Brian Callahan, who's going to learn his offense, who's going to mesh well with all those kind of things. So do they rock with Levis another year? I don't want to.
Yeah.
I mean, he had his breakout game against the Falcons and then has struggled to repeat that performance. I think he had one game this past season in our very, very poor 3-14 season where he showed some signs of life. But other than that, he's He's not the answer. He's not the guy. And neither was Mason Rudolph. Neither one of those guys are going to be the ones to take you to the promised land. So I think as far as this long-term solution, building a strong team, building something that going forward the Titans are going to remake that name for themselves that they had not long ago in the 2020-2021 run where they were going to the AFC Championship, where running in the playoffs and being the number one seed in the AFC was not foreign to us.
Yeah.
We need to get back to that place, and I think that comes with getting who is the best player in the draft. And like Abdul Carter said, and now I agree with him, he is the best player in this draft. He is the most surefire, the best guy you can bet on to really make an impact. And if you got Abdul Carter on one side, Jeffrey Simmons on the other, Tavondre Sweat tearing things up in the middle, I mean, you've got a stellar defensive line right there. And that's just going to be the building blocks of what I think is going to propel the Titans to success.
Yeah, it's a good point by you because, I mean, this really is just the start of the draft process for these teams that are making selections. You know, you go through the combine. Obviously, they're doing work behind the scenes, scouting all these guys, watching film, doing all that stuff. But you've got the combine. You still have pro days coming up. And then, you know, we have to wait until the draft actually takes place. So a lot will happen from now to then. I also saw this today. Obviously, Abdul Carter went through testing yesterday because the defensive linemen went through the on-field testing today. He did not participate in that. He'll do all of his stuff at Penn State's Pro Day. But I saw this on social media earlier today. Indiana's C.J. West, who weighed in at 316 pounds. Take a guess at what he ran in his 40 times. No cheating.
I'm not going to cheat.
Good.
485.
Incorrect. You're going a little too low. He's 315 pounds. I mean, good Lord.
Well, dude, I mean...
395.
I wasn't that far
You weren't
off.
that far, but it's always better if you're like, oh, he's 316 pounds. He probably ran like 506. That'd be pretty good.
Well, not with...
495.
Well, I mean, did you see the time Tavondre Sweat ran in last year's combine?
Well, that is true. That is
Dude
true.
is huge, and he's moving.
495 his first run, 496 his second run. Obviously, both unofficial, but
that's crazy.
Moving.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Running you down on a field. Oh my goodness, that's terrible.
Always the best part of scouting combines, just seeing these freaks of athletes out there showing off how incredible they are. The other story I wanted to get to has to do with Travis Kelce. It sounds like he will return for the 2025 season. This came out earlier today on the Pat McAfee show. Pat McAfee confirmed Thursday with the Kansas City Chiefs star tight end. He texted Travis Kelce and got a text back. This was the text that Pat McAfee read from Kelce on the show today. Quote, "I'm coming back for sure. Gonna try to get into the best shape I've been this offseason and get back to the mountaintop. Got a real bad taste in my mouth with how I played in the last game and how I got the guys ready for battle. I can't go out like that." With 4 exclamation points at the end. So it sounds like Travis Kelce is coming back. Sounds like he's ready to go. We know earlier this week, Kansas City Chiefs general manager Brett Veach said at the Combine that he expected Kelce to return based on the conversations they had. I think a lot of people kind of going, well, of course you do, you know. The general manager, of course you would want Travis Kelce to come back. But now it does sound like Travis Kelce, at least according to the text on the Pat McAfee show, sounds like he's going to return. And I guess now the question would be, what does that mean for this Kansas City Chiefs team? They were just, in the position with the opportunity to do what we've never seen in the NFL, a three-peat, 3 straight Super Bowl wins. They had that opportunity, but you could tell in that Super Bowl game, they were not the better team by a wide margin. And so I guess that raises the question of, you're going to bring back Andy Reid. You're going to bring back Patrick Mahomes. Now it sounds like you're going to bring back Travis Kelce. I'd take those 3 over just about anybody. What does that mean for this Kansas City Chiefs team? What do you think they need to prioritize this offseason if you're going to have those 3 guys back in the fold for next season?
Well, I know right now the Chiefs, they acquired DeAndre Hopkins from the Tennessee Titans, and right now he's a free agent. So I think there's a lot of questions up in the air about what they're going to do wide receiver-wise. I don't think you can put the entire burden of the wide receiver core on Xavier Worthy, even though he had 2 touchdown catches in the Super Bowl. Great player. I mean, set the record at the Combine, right, for fastest 40 time. But still pretty young, still learning the NFL. Great player, not taking anything away from him. But I think you need some answers there. And I think, too, if the Super Bowl showed us anything, is that the Chiefs needed O-line. They need some protection. They need something there because Patrick Mahomes, great quarterback, but there's only so much a quarterback can do when he's being chased down by 4 dudes who are trying to strip and rip the ball away from him. So I think there's a lot of questions there. I don't think they're definitely not going to all be answered throughout the draft. So you're definitely going to have to look to see what deals you can strike up, what veterans you can get to bring to this team if they want to continue being those top dogs in the AFC like we expect them to be.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, I think you could see them be pretty active this offseason because now this is the second offseason we've wondered, will Travis Kelce hang it up? And it feels like this year was a lot more, up in the air than it was last year. So, you're thinking maybe last ride with Travis Kelce. Patrick Mahomes, not that he's old by any means, but that's his guy. And Travis Kelce, he'd be losing that weapon. Andy Reid, only gets older. Maybe you see them go out and try to, they feel like they have the foundation to be back in that position. Maybe we see them go out there and try to address a lot of these holes that we saw, Philadelphia really exploit in that Super Bowl matchup. So I think it'll be fun to watch Kansas City this offseason and what they decide to do. Well, let's go ahead and get to our final break of the day. And when we return, we'll wrap up today's show with Crunch Time.
Start your day with Sports 56 Mornings with Greg Gaston and Eli Savoy. Weekday mornings from 7 to 10, right here on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
If wedding bells are in your future, you need an unforgettable engagement ring from a jeweler you can trust. And that's been James Gaddis Jewelers for over 60 years. With a huge selection and the best prices, James Gaddis is a master jeweler and diamondologist. Beautiful jewelry from James Gaddis is always the right choice. Choose from rings to earrings, necklaces to bracelets, and gemstones to watches. Layaway and financing available. James Gaddis Jewelers, 4900 Poplar, online at GaddisJewelers.com and Instagram at Gaddis Jewelers. Say I do at James Gaddis Jewelers.
It's the Mitsubishi Motors Spring Sales Event at Gossett Mitsubishi on the Pike. 2024 Mitsubishi Mirage. We Gossett. $249 a month or buy for $18,410 gets 43 MPG. 2024 Mitsubishi Outlander Plug-in Hybrid PHEV compared to Mazda CX-90. Better range, better warranty, and we Gossett at $299 per month or buy for $42.9. Ready to upgrade your ride? Get 2024 Mitsubishi Outlander. $399 a month or buy for $29,460. Plus, get peace of mind with Mitsubishi's 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain limited warranty. Get to Gossett Mitsubishi today to start your year off right. 1870 Covington Pike and 24/7 at MemphisMitsubishi.com.
If you want it, we got it at Gossett Motor Cars.
MSRP 18410, PHEV RZO 59821, MSRP 489, Outlander RZO 67325, MSRP 33210, includes all rebates and incentives, PF 895, excludes tax title license, CD for complete details, offer valid through end of the month with approved credit, dealer stock only.
Our daughter Jessie loves playing detective.
A clue.
But since we discovered she has sensitive skin, we've been playing detective too.
We thought the problem was our puppy.
But it was actually our old detergent.
Aha.
So we switched to Tide Free and Gentle. Tide Free and Gentle provides an excellent Tide clean, and it doesn't leave behind irritating residues like dyes or perfume. It's gentle on your skin.
Case closed.
If it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide Free and Gentle.
Step up your wings game at East Coast Wings and Grill. With 60 wing flavors and 7 heat indexes, do you have what it takes to turn the heat on your wings up to insanity? East Coast Wings and Grill is family friendly with a large variety menu to satisfy the whole bunch. Sign up today for a loyalty program and taste the rewards. For every dollar you spend, you collect a point. Earn 100 points and receive a $5 reward. Next to Lowe's on Highway 64 in Marlin, come try America's best wings Jason's Deli, when you're dining in or picking up curbside, you can expect wholesome food and no surprises. Just delicious sandwiches, crisp salads, and quick quality meals made with the freshest ingredients and no artificial trans fats, MSG, high fructose corn syrup, or artificial colors and dyes. Around here, a lot of thought goes into what we put into our food and what we take out of it, because you're not just taking a bite, you're getting a taste of who we are. New items are constantly being created to expand our menu for all tastes and special diets with vegan and gluten-free options available. Convenience and on-time delivery you can count on. It's just a click away at jasonsdeli.com, so whether you need to feed 5 people or 5,000, the team at Jason's Deli, they have the credentials and the commitment to keep you satisfied. Freshness is nearby at Jason's Deli with locations at Ridgeway in the Park Place Center, Poplar and Highland, Germantown Road in Cordova, and on Goodman Road in Olive Branch. Jason's Deli. It's wholesome food and no surprises.
Top Gun is the largest indoor range in the Mid-South, but size isn't their only difference. Top Gun has the best instructors with over 300 years combined experience and classes all the way from first shot to master marksmanship. Plus, Top Gun is affordable. Gold membership is just $48 a month. That's just $1.60 a day for a limited range time. Free gun rentals with purchase of ammo and members lounge access. Top Gun, 2770 Whitten Road, TopGunMemphis.com. Always shoot with the best. Top Gun Memphis.
Drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds. With that kind of money, you Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates not available in all states. Potential savings will vary.
Pretty cool, and we're just getting started, so.
Spanning the globe.
Go crazy, folks! Go crazy!
This is for all the biggest crunch time. You are looking live. In your life have you seen anything like that? Goodbye! Hello, Haskins.
It's obviously crunch time.
Hammer, nail, coffin, this baby is over.
Well, Landon, what I learned today, earlier this morning, Grizzlies PR announced that the Memphis Grizzlies, Gray Media, and FanDuel Sports Network will simulcast 5 upcoming games in Tennessee's 3 largest media markets, Memphis, Nashville, and Knoxville, free over the air. The statement that they put out, I'll read part of it very quickly here. The Memphis Grizzlies, Gray Media, and FanDuel Sports Network will simulcast 5 upcoming regular season games in Tennessee's 3 largest media markets, Memphis, Nashville, and Knoxville, free over the air, giving fans across the state a variety of options to watch and cheer the Grizzlies on through the end of the regular season. The agreement will make these 5 Grizzly games available to over 3 million households and more than 7 million people in Tennessee. In Memphis, Gray will broadcast the games free over the air on WMC TV Action News 5, Channel 5.1, and simulcast on WMC TV Plus, Channel 5.3. Then it goes on to talk about in Nashville, where you can watch it, and also in Knoxville. The updated broadcast schedule is as followed. Wednesday, March 12th at 7 p.m., that's Grizzlies versus Utah. Saturday, March 15th, 7 p.m., Memphis versus Miami Heat. That's the Tony Allen jersey retirement game. March 27th, Grizzlies versus Oklahoma City Thunder. April 1st, Grizzlies versus the Warriors. And then the regular season finale, Grizzlies versus Mavericks on April 13th. I think this is huge, and I think we'll see more of this, giving fans that opportunity, because I know not every provider, whether you're on cable or on a streaming package, offers FanDuel Sports Network, so you're having to pay for it, especially people in Nashville and Knoxville across the state not able to get it. You're having to pay for it to watch these games. Now, giving fans the opportunity to watch it free, I'm always in favor of that. So kudos to the Grizzlies, FanDuel Sports Network, and Gray Media for getting this done. It will be fun to watch it.
Yeah, that's awesome. What I learned today, we're going to have to travel very far west. Gonna go visit my Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. Got some huge news today that Nike and BSN Sports are now the official outfitters for all Rainbow Warrior teams starting this July, and that will carry all the way to 2032. Now, this is huge because for the longest time, or not the longest time, since Adidas has taken over for Hawaii, there's been an obvious drop-off in merch and jersey and how all these kind of things look. And I believe it was either you or Brett that said Adidas doesn't really produce anything cool or whatever.
They don't. It probably was me.
I think it was you now that I'm remembering. And I have to agree. The only thing that was awesome was the football and design that they had for Hawaii. Totally awesome. But the reason I'm excited about this is we now have the potential for Hawaii to go back to their golden era of the jerseys that they had. I don't know if you remember this guy named Colt Brennan.
Of course.
Colt Brennan, legendary. Before, we started getting into the air raid of just every offense, and I think it was Joe Burrow who broke, it was, I can't remember what his name was. But for the longest time, Colt Brennan held the record for most passing touchdowns in college football with Hawaii. Nice little sidearm, left-handed, unbelievable. But they had these silver helmets, and I believe that year that they went undefeated, they faced Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, which was huge for Hawaii. They've never been to a game that big. And they rocked these white and silver and black jerseys, just looked incredible. I'm personally excited for this because for the longest time, I've been tired of looking at just this simple design on my Rainbow Warriors. So very excited for what it's going to look like coming up here soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Always cool. I mean, Nike's the premier brand.
I mean, there's a reason why they're leading.
Exactly. What I could have done without today, this happened earlier in the week, just haven't had a chance to talk about it, but Northern Illinois, they announced that their non-football programs will be moving to the Horizon League in 2026. If you remember, NIU announced that they would join the Mountain West as a football-only member, and that left them in a very weird spot because obviously the MAC did not want them in their conference if they are not going to play football, so they needed to find somewhere else. They found the Horizon League. I just hate it because, some of these conferences, it's getting kind of messy with where these teams are playing. But I will say this, if you want a bright spot of this, I think that does show that conferences are open to taking teams as just basketball. Now, the Horizon League does not play football, so that's different. But I say that because there are a lot of people out there talking about maybe Memphis getting involved with the Pac-12 as a football only and then playing all of their other sports in the Big East. Northern Illinois, smaller scale, showing that can be done, so maybe something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, for sure. What I could have done without today, the initial 2025 college football rankings came out today. I won't go through the list of all the teams. Obviously, that would take way too long. But in the top 10, who they have right now is Ohio State at number 1, and very questionable for me is number 2, they have Alabama. I don't know if I agree
Big
with.
jump for Alabama.
It's a huge jump, and I just I really don't understand where that's coming from. Really, I don't understand why number 2. Based on last year's performance, I could maybe understand it like a number 9 or something like that. But number 2 for me, just way too high for Alabama.
Yeah, that does seem very, very high. I would have to say where I'm beaming, I got to beam tonight to one of these NBA games, the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Los Angeles Lakers. This game feels like it's going to be a fun game. We saw what the Lakers did in their last game out against the Dallas Mavericks. We'll see if they can do that same thing on the other side. Minnesota earlier this week came back from trailing by more than 20 to beat the Oklahoma City Thunder. So that should be a fun game later tonight, NBA TV. Where are you beaming tonight?
Beam me. If there's any opportunity to go to Honolulu, I will take it. Hawaii hosts UC Riverside in a Big West matchup. Hawaii basketball been struggling a little bit, kind of going on a losing streak right now, but they are favored over UC Riverside, so I'm excited to see how Hawaii performs.
Yeah, that's one of the games. Doug Kazarian likes UC Riverside tonight, so I'll probably be watching that because I'll probably bet one of the sides.
I guess we'll see.
I don't know which. Enjoy your night. We'll talk to you again tomorrow afternoon.